Chapter 101. Rules are meant to be broken. Everyone was running quickly, and at the same time, a message appeared before the eyes of all the players. Silent Day has begun. The Lost Land will erupt, and various strange tales and abnormalities will descend upon the Pure Land. I now know where so many oddities in Pure Land City come from. Qing Lang said. However, there should also be a lot of good things. It just depends on whether they can be taken out of the instance, and that special item for the hidden job change should also be among them. Left Hand suddenly paused at this moment. He picked up a stone and his eyes slightly lit up. Su Buxian, he replied. What did he say? His brows furrowed deeply. He said for us to go ahead, and he will come later with his underlings. Underlings? Everyone was startled, but they didn't show too much surprise. You mean an abnormality, right? It seems he has also made a trade, hiring an abnormality. Although they had fought desperately during the day yesterday, braving all kinds of dangers, they had made nearly a total of 3,000 coins. Then they traded with a land of strange tales and temporarily gained a portion of special strength. They had also hired 3 abnormalities to follow them. Money makes the world go round. This was the overriding rule in Pure Land City and the correct way to play the game. And now they were heading to meet up with the people from the first sequence, accompanied by these 3 abnormalities. A minute later, they met up with the group from the first sequence in a derelict plaza. These are... Qing Lang and the others twitched, because behind the people of the first sequence stood more than 20 tall and formidable abnormalities. Yun Zhantian waved his hand. Folks, sorry. It was too rushed last night. I couldn't find you, so I took the liberty to spend the 10,000 coins Brother Su brought for you, trading for some temporary props and hiring abnormalities. Please! Yun Zhantian looked behind him. 10 abnormalities puffed out their breaths through their noses, their faces cold as they walked straight towards Left Hand and the others. Left Hand and the others looked astonished, turning to see their team's size had doubled. Did you just say Brother Su? Su Buxian. Yun Zhantian nodded. He gave me the coins he made at the casino to bring to you. Qing Lang and the others were somewhat silent upon hearing this, their expressions showing a hint of guilt. Based on their understanding, the casino was filled with all kinds of cold and cruel rules, inhabited by the most vicious and evil folks. They imagined a scene, Su Buxian in the casino, desperately earning money while they were urgently sending messages, and the hard-earned savings he accumulated were all handed over to them. Yun Zhantian looked at their guilty expressions and tilted his head slightly. Why are you all so quiet? Qing Lang stayed silent for a moment, his tone becoming somber. Just feel like we've misunderstood Su Buxian. We didn't expect that he was fighting so hard last night in a place we didn't know about. Left Hand also frowned, sighing. Brother Su, he is really... I could cry. Why are you also calling him Brother Su now? Yun Zhantian. He didn't know what to say. Could he tell them that inside? Su Qi lived it up, being weighted on hand and foot, with whatever he wanted provided, and that those so-called ruthless folks had to address him respectfully as Brother Su? He looked at their ashamed and guilty faces. He simply couldn't bring himself to say it. And at that moment, the sky suddenly came to a standstill, while outside the Pure Land, the mosaic began to blot out the sun as it covered the sky dome and enveloped the entire Pure Land City. Red Blade's wrist flickered slightly, and a red long sword appeared in his hand. Squinting, he raised his head and said, Gentlemen, they have arrived. The entire Pure Land City was covered by a mosaic of distorted images. The streets around them, originally pieced together, also began to twist. An abnormality solemnly warned, the so-called Silent Day is when eerie strength invades the city, turning everything on either side of the streets into the Lost Land. That is to say, as long as you're on the streets, you won't be affected. But beware not to be sucked into the surrounding land of strange tales. It's very troublesome and dangerous once inside. The man with the sword on his back slowly put on his felt hat. Don't worry. We only have one target. Meanwhile, the pointers on the wrists of all the players were spinning furiously. Then all pointed in one direction. It seems the final location has been confirmed too. Gentlemen, let's move. At the same moment elsewhere, Su Chi also pushed open the doors of the casino. He looked at the vast mist and the twisted mosaic sky dome and said, I remind you again that you must follow orders. During today's silent day, influenced by this force, all the casino's rules are rendered inoperative. That means whatever you do, the entity behind the casino will not be aware. He revealed a smile. And that includes the casino's vault. Oh, I almost forgot it should be called the coin vault for you all. I will tell you the password directly when the time comes. A crowd of gamblers all showed a look that was a mix of dread and excitement. No one has ever dared to do what you're doing. Brother Su, are you really sure you want to do this? Su Chi glanced at the crowd. Rules? They're made to be broken. And according to what those knocked-out referees just said, the amount inside has reached nearly 10 million. The gamblers chanted together. Understood. We will all listen to Brother Su. Su Chi snapped his fingers. Out here, call me sect hierarch. But, Brother Su. Fishman Aaron looked toward the mosaic-filled sky. Although we also come out on the silent day to look for valuable things, we dare not go too deep for fear of falling into the land of strange tales. Can you avoid these and find the correct location? Su Chi glanced at the pointer on his wrist. Then he covered his wrist. Just roughly pinpointing the location is good enough. As for avoiding, why should we avoid it? The burly man with the giant axe and Fishman Aaron both looked slightly taken aback. What do you mean? Su Chi did not answer them but looked toward all the gamblers. There were nearly 200 of them, and each one was no ordinary abnormality, the ruthless and vicious sort, none of whom were good. Just one taken to the ordinary world could be the subject of a 2-hour horror movie. And at this moment, they were shoulder to shoulder, a dense crowd like a gang moving out. These dangerous creatures, now obediently waiting for Su Chi's call to action. Su Chi cleared his throat. I have an announcement to make. I've pinpointed the location, but taking the long way around is too much trouble. To save time and let you brothers get your hands on those 10 million coins in the vault more quickly, I've decided. Su Chi paused. Starting now, we'll directly bulldoze through any land of strange tales in our way. Crush all who defy us. Assimilate all objects of strange tales, and aim for everyone to have one of their own. Su Chi revealed a slight smile. Are we clear? Chapter 102 Bandits invade the village. Amidst the presence of numerous abnormalities, Su Chi's smile somehow made them shudder involuntarily, triggering a thought in their minds despite being feared as dangerous abnormalities. You truly are the real abnormality, aren't you? What? Should I repeat myself? At this point, everyone regained their senses and responded with a hint of madness. Then let's charge with Brother Su. Let the land of strange tales see who is the real boss of Pure Land City. Brother Su boldly soars. We will forever follow. Fishman Aaron and the giant axe abnormality also revealed cruel smiles as they watched the scene unfold, and Prison Uniform Rabbit eagerly gripped a baseball bat. Su Chi, standing on the steps with a grand wave of his hand, commanded, Set off. In the dark and eerie lands, dense forests loomed ominously. The strange tales residing here exuded a terrifying aura, that immense force seemingly wanting to draw everything into this place and tear it to pieces. At that moment, a group of people with an eerie aura entered one by one, led by 8 cultists with the black-robed man at the forefront, and 5 from Free City also followed. Besides that, each of them carried a tool imbued with temporary strange tale strength, and nearly 30 abnormalities followed them around. The young man from Free City, holding a cigarette, looked at those peculiarities. It seems we've wandered into the land of strange tales again. This silent day is really no joke. He pointed to a passageway through the middle of dead trees. It seems we must pass through this way. The black-robed man watched calmly. It's possible. The cultists had no main missions, nor did they have pointers, which is why they collaborated with Free City, partly to use as a tool person and partly using their guidance to navigate towards the location of the resurrection tool. This place's strangeness. Though we don't know what it is, does it feel like countless eyes are watching us? Someone spoke with a frown as they stepped onto the forest path, feeling a chilling sensation washing over their backs. The cultists, expressionless. A chill? They worshipped the evil god, so how could they feel fear from a bunch of polluted strange tales? And just as they stepped into the forest and had barely walked a few steps, the next moment, hiss! The multitude of bizarre dead trees suddenly emitted a deafening hiss. It actually dizzied the entire group, and the forest abnormalities erupted with strong pollution power. All the surrounding vegetation shook violently, and numerous dead tree branches viciously struck at these people. The people of Free City slightly changed their expressions. Damn it! I knew it! Everyone, quickly retreat first. The black-robed man suddenly shouted coldly, "No retreating!" Evil patterns on his body emitted an even more sinister aura, blocking the hissing. His gaze was cold. Advance quickly, don't waste time, and avoid entangling with them too much. The land of strange tales was troublesome. Once trapped, even they would need a lot of effort to escape. Thus, he used the strength within the patterns. The people from Free City and the surrounding abnormalities could only rush forward. The bizarre dead trees didn't hesitate to attack. Their branches grew sharp fangs, turning into fierce blades, constantly attacking them. The black-robed man even actively grabbed one abnormality and stabbed it through. A surge of blood burst forth. The abnormality trembled and looked at the black-robed man in horror. But the next moment, he was tossed directly to the group of dead trees. The dead trees, lured by blood, diverted their attention. Go! After the black-robed man coldly spat out the word, the crowd saw the struggled abnormality being drained of blood, felt their scalps go numb. Then, under the black-robed man's sinister power and the loss of an abnormality, they finally rushed out of the forest passageway in haste. The pile of dead trees also trembled continuously. If looked at closely, one could see every dead tree laden with fragmented flesh and blood, and the ground below was covered in stark white bones. They seemed displeased at having let this group go, emitting eerie hisses. Hee hee hee. It sounded like they were sinisterly laughing, utterly chilling. And about 10 minutes later, a figure slowly stepped into this land of strange tales. Hearing footsteps, the numerous dead trees shook their treetops, laughing even more chillingly, the shadows under them flickering, exuding filthy pollution power. They also stared intently at Suchi, seemingly excited. Absolutely could not let this person who entered again get away. Though it was just one person, it could still be thoroughly tormented, skin peeled, sinew extracted, blood drained. And then, the giant axe abnormality, Fishman Aaron, and prison uniform rabbit also stepped in. For people? Good, the fun was even greater. The dead trees were already cheering, ready to enjoy the feast of the hunt. But, the next moment, come on. Why is the entrance to this land of strange tales so narrow? Damn it. The guy behind. Stop squeezing me. And can you not put your weapon in your trousers? It's pressing against me. Brother. Just a reminder. His weapon is held in his hand. Loud footsteps, clamorous voices, and muttering complaints. At this moment all surged into this place. Strange polluted forest. They watched in shock at the dense crowd. What day is today? Is the village giving out gold bars? Or has the electronics factory finished work? Why are there so many people? Oh no, abnormalities. Chapter 103. The shaking had already ceased after a crowd of people stepped in, completely extinguishing the fire. Among them, a withered tree that had apparently not grasped the situation wanted to repeat its old trick, emitting a shrill cry. The nearby withered trees, anxious not to wait, thrust out their roots and branches and lashed at its trunk. Snap! Snap, snap, snap. Shut up. Can't you see so many people? Stay in line, let this revered group pass. At worst, they wouldn't do anything. That's all. But the crowd had no intention of leaving. Instead, they turned their eyes to a young man among the abnormalities, who seemed the most harmless and unremarkable. The young man glanced around. Looks like another wild tale from the wilderness. Let's not stand on ceremony then. Whoever is in charge of the wilds. A purple oddity that looked like a devil fish, flapping its wings, walked over. What do you suggest, Brother Su? Do we charge straight through the corridor? Charge my ass. Have you lost your mind? Su Chi punched him. You go start a fire over there. Everyone else, clear this eerie forest for me. Burn every last tree. Whatever strange tale tools you find, keep them for yourselves. Understood. The eerie withered trees stood petrified. What do you understand? We haven't laid a finger on you. We don't bother you, and you still won't let us go? They watched, shivering, as a horde of oddities rushed towards them with fiendish grins and frenzied laughter. 1 minute later, flames engulfed the entire forest of eerie withered trees, their screams of terror piercing the air before they were reduced to ashes and charcoal. This young man clearly knew their weaknesses inside and out and, numerically or otherwise, they had no chance of resistance. The excited oddities quickly completed the sweep. Brother Su, please sign for this. Aha! Su Chi glanced at the withered branches presented to him. The ability displayed would allow them to elongate, transform into a whip with a bladed edge, inflicting a bleeding buff on impact. The tools were actually quite decent, but they were only temporary and couldn't be taken away. Keep it for yourself then. All right. Thanks, Brother Su. With the ground scorched black, Su Chi looked at the people. Well done, everyone. He snapped his fingers. Now, keep moving. They were like bandits sweeping through a village. Regardless of how eerie and bizarre the land of strange tales was, under the charge of 100 oddities, there was absolutely no resistance. A complete rout suppression, like a plague of locusts. Wherever they went, nothing was left alive. Meanwhile, Left Hand, Yun Zhantian, and others were rapidly approaching the final land. The cultists, too, were quickly following the compass's direction, advancing relentlessly. Time was of the essence, especially for Yun Zhantian and his group, who already lacked the advantage. Losing the opportune moment would be even more troubling. The first to arrive could prepare in advance, lay an ambush, set up, seize the initiative. We're here. The man carrying the heavy sword suddenly spoke in a deep tone. Stop for a moment. Everyone halted, their gaze following the man's line of sight to what lay ahead. The strange tale land before them was an even vaster fragment, with an ominous red hue to its sky dome, below which lay a desolate waste of yellow sand and blood-soiled earth, and various bones and broken blades. Is this a battlefield? The man with the heavy sword gestured for the others to keep their presence concealed, wary of the cultists and the people from Free City lying in ambush. The place was vast, with significant undulations in the terrain, and the entrance and exit were random. After ensuring there were no dangers, he signaled the others to enter. The tuner stepped in, picked up a broken blade from the ground, and after a careful examination, narrowed his eyes slightly. This battlefield has been here for a long time. Judging by the people and weapons that died here, it's at least 1,000 years old. You've studied this? I come from a lineage of Tomb Raider captains. The tuner coughed. Impressive. While the others were observing and setting up, he wandered silently for a while longer, examining many of the relics left behind. It's strange. What's strange about it? Hard to say. The tuner picked up some items. Look at these tokens. Qing Lang's eyes narrowed slightly. Is a symbol of the cultists. Damn. Cultists? They've been around for over 1,000 years. Bai Changwei asked in surprise. So who were they fighting in this war? One by one, the group found other different symbols. Could it be the followers of some other existing entities? Red Blade looked coldly at all this. You guys, can you stop worrying about these irrelevant matters? Right now, the most important thing is battle preparation. Anything could happen before that thing emerges. Relax, no need to remind us. We know what to do, Qing Lang replied calmly. Left Hand silently watched the scene. He suddenly felt the atmosphere a bit heavy. After all, with a formidable enemy looming, although everyone was a super newcomer, there would inevitably be some anxiety and tension. In such a situation, no one could feel at ease. Everyone harbored a sense of unease in their hearts. Left Hand thought of Su Buxian. Would he become like this if he were here? What would he do? Right? Left Hand took out a stone. They had been on the move just now and had no time to make contact. Now that they had arrived at the location, Left Hand immediately sent a message to Su Qi. Brother Su, we've arrived. Where are you now? About 10 seconds later, Su Qi replied, I'm leading my guys, and we are rushing to the final position. We will need a bit more time. Left Hand warned. Be extra careful of a creepy land of strange tales. It is filled with nothing but rabbits. They might look tiny and cute, but they are extremely dangerous. If it weren't for someone with a teleportation skill, we would have been wiped out. Make sure you don't stumble into that place. Su Qi replied as well. You're too late, we've already been through the land of strange tales. My guys are pretty solid and have dealt with it. Left Hand was stunned. What kind of abnormality was that strong? He wanted to continue asking, but in the next moment, Yun Zhantian, who had his eyes closed, stirred. He had a skill that allowed him to see far away. His voice became slightly tense. Those guys are coming. Everyone's expression hardened as they immediately entered combat readiness. Left Hand also put the stone in his pocket. He touched the bandage on his left arm, his gaze becoming serious. I have them at my 9 o'clock, about 2 kilometers away, Yun Zhantian said gravely. And there's a lot of them. They've hired about 30 abnormal creatures, and as for the temporary strange tail tools couldn't be put in the item slot, nor could too many be carried. The pollution power on them would accumulate, and once it exceeded the level of spiritual power a person could tolerate, it would backlash. Suddenly, he frowned deeply, looking unwell. My investigation skill has been detected by those cultists. His spiritual power wasn't high. Probing deeply would naturally be noticed. And on the other side, the black-robed man also looked up, his pupils cold and filled with intent to kill. At this moment, boom! The entire battlefield trembled slightly. The sky turned an even darker red than before, and a strong wind blew up from somewhere, whipping up swirls of dust and sand. A tornado connecting the sky dome and the ground was slowly forming. A strange and eerie feeling was spreading in everyone's mind. It seems it started, and they've come just in time. The black-robed man's eyes gleamed with a strange and crazed light. He slowly raised his blade. Some of you stay here with me to prepare the ritual. The rest go and take out that group of guys. Even if you can't finish them, don't let them interrupt me. Understood. Meanwhile, Su Qi's pace also quickened, because in addition to this group of desperate souls, a dense pack of rabbits with red glowing eyes was following them. To be honest, Su Qi hadn't expected this. The one leading these rabbits to find their origins was the prison uniform rabbit standing silently beside him. It stood to his left, like Su Qi's left-hand general. All I can say about my guys. Each possesses unique skills. Su Qi clapped his hands, looking at the others. Gentlemen, pick up the pace. We're not aiming for a complete sweep now. Following the direction of the pointer, he looked toward the distant sky dome. Just rapidly push through the middle. Chapter 10 for Su Buxian. The fierce wind swept across the yellow earth. The tornado in the middle had gradually turned black and was exuding an aura of abnormality. And at the same time, everyone had encountered the cultists head-on, and a fierce battle had ensued. Qing Lang let out a low growl as his equipment manifested, and he burst out with tremendous strength, attacking the cultists. Bai Changwei also threw a dagger, which shot out and, the moment it was dodged by an abnormality, she disappeared on the spot and reappeared in the direction of the dagger, plunging it viciously into the abnormality's neck. Kill! Wherever Red Blade stepped, scorching hot winds brewed, and with sword in hand, He charged straight at a Free City staff member. As his blade cut through the air, it shrieked as if with friction. The flames seemed to transform into the blade's edge. 2. Boom! Everyone fought desperately with all their might, trying to compensate for the numerical disadvantage with combative force. But they could only gain brief reprieves by continuous bursts of power. After all, the cultists who could enter this instance naturally possessed strength to match these super rookies, and with the aid of the patterns on their bodies, they could even launch surprise attacks, along with abnormalities lurking around, ready to unleash deadly assaults. They inevitably fell into a disadvantage without any surprises. Be careful! The short-haired girl suddenly sharpened her gaze. Her teammate, the steam backpack boy, was sent flying by a cultist, and 2 abnormalities attacked the boy simultaneously. She wanted to save her teammate, but couldn't. I'll do it! The tuner suddenly pulled back his hands, bent his elbows in a strange gesture, and the pigeon on his shoulder turned from white to black, its eyes reddening, its body size expanding several times as it screeched. With an outstretched hand he pointed, black feathers scattered, and simultaneously enveloped the steam backpack boy, moving him out of the abnormality's attack range. I remember the data showed that this is his trump card, right? Seems quite useful, although it's a shame it's just a support ability. Goldie from Free City, chewing bubblegum, said, "What about you guys? Aren't you going to use your trump cards? If you don't use them now, you might not get another chance." Goldie sneered coldly, suddenly clapped his hands together, and the bubble gum exploded violently, sending gobs of sticky fluid rushing at everyone. A sinking feeling hit everyone's hearts. Truly disgusting, but extremely dangerous. Their abnormalities weren't fast enough to dodge and got stuck, unable to move. Boom! Another woman, her face pierced with various iron spikes, hoisted a cannon and blasted an abnormality to death. She stamped heavily on the ground. "What a pity! We didn't catch those idiots." The muscle man cursed as he raised his Gatling gun. "Die, you bastard! Go away!" Bullets poured out in a torrent. "Ah ha ha ha! In a rush now, aren't we?" The woman sneered mockingly, as a teammate conjured defense equipment to shield her. At this moment, the steam backpack boy took a deep breath, the gears in his backpack making noise as the backpack began to transform and reassemble, and in just a few seconds, a heavy mecha was assembled, with him seated in the cockpit, unleashing a barrage of firepower. Boom, boom, boom. The cultists and the people of Free City watched the landscape peppered with blast craters without any hint of panic. These super rookies are quite troublesome. But the cultists' hoarse voices sounded. "One by one, you've played your cards, but we have yet to truly take action. Now you shall witness the mighty power of the true God." The murderous words reached everyone's ears, their gazes slightly tightening. Then the patterns on the cultists' bodies manifested simultaneously, and bundles of black, sinister energy emitted a screaming sound. Nearly 50 abnormalities appeared around them, looking as if they were dead, with some even having half their heads sheared off, soaked in various bloodstains. As the black shadows from the totem dispersed and entered these bodies, each abnormality seemed to come back to life, emitting a ghastly creaking sound. Last night's population cleansing operation was quite successful. Otherwise, we wouldn't have collected so many mostly intact corpses. The cultists, clearly not without expenditure, said with pale faces. "So next," the cultists paused, their tones surging with murderous intent and coldness. "Kill them!" The many corpse-like abnormalities charged at them. The cultists and the 4 from Free City also charged with murder in their eyes, obviously wanting to take them all down in one wave. All faces were grave, their hearts sinking to the bottom. Their current situation was precarious, everyone having sustained injuries and their physical strength nearing exhaustion. They wanted to burst forth again, but were already at the end of their strength. "What do we do?" Bai Changwei huskily asked, clutching her shoulder. "Fight with everything we've got. Never give up until the very last moment." Qing Lang said gravely, "Even if there's a sliver of hope, we must create an opportunity." Right now, in their team, Yoon Jantian and the captain of the first sequence were not present, having gone off at the start to attack the cultist's leader, the black-robed man, seemingly to forge an escape route out of this situation. Left Hand, gasping for breath, looked at the approaching enemies, unwilling to accept defeat. It's a pity. I no longer have the physical strength to use my ultimate move. Even though they were consuming physical potions, their restorative effects were greatly diminished when taken in quick succession, and past a certain number of uses, they could even drop to a mere 10% effectiveness. And his ultimate move required full physical strength, a condition almost impossible to maintain under these circumstances, leaving no chance to use it. What will you use to win? Goldie laughed maniacally. Die! Just as everyone braced themselves for a final desperate battle, ready to fight to the death. Buzz, buzz. The stone in Left Hand's possession suddenly vibrated. Left Hand's body trembled slightly. Someone was messaging him, and there could only be one person. Su Buxian. At such a critical moment, he clenched his teeth and quickly took out the stone, but the message made Left Hand freeze. This land of strange tales has absolute rules. You must raise your left hand high. Use all your strength to loudly recite the spell. Balala energy, Yaraudara, grant me your strength. And it will trigger the rules, resulting in a divine descent of heavenly weapons. Left Hand paused for a moment, violently throwing the rock to the ground, and roared, "Who would believe that?" Everyone was slightly taken aback, but couldn't afford to divide their attention, as the enemy had already encircled them and they had to focus entirely on the battle. Has Su Buxian arrived? Muscle Bully's eyes gleamed faintly. Then let's delay until he gets here. Maybe we could still. Qing Lang collided violently with an abnormality. After cleaving it away, he shook his head while gasping for breath. No, individual strength is no longer of much use now. Let him go to Yoon Jantian. There might still be another chance. At that moment, Left Hand was conflicted, but he ultimately decided to give it a try. Taking a deep breath, he slowly raised his left hand. His voice trembling and his face flushed red as he gritted his teeth and let out a thunderous roar. Balala energy, Yaraudara, please grant me strength. His voice echoed for a long time in that place. People fell into a daze. Goldie and the cultists were also stunned. The cannon woman, surprised, pointed at Left Hand and even asked Qing Lang and the others, "Has he lost his mind?" Qing Lang. Left Hand stared blankly around him, but nothing happened. He silently retracted his hand and grabbed Qing Lang next to him. "Kill me! Immediately!" How embarrassing. He wanted to die. "Let us do the honors, then," roared Goldie with a laugh, charging forward. And just then, boom! An explosive sound burst from afar, making everyone's eardrums throb with pain. Even the cultists and the 4 individuals from Free City froze. This wasn't a spiritual impact, but physical harm. Who is it? Goldie's face darkened slightly, his gaze sharpening as he looked into the distance. A bat abnormality was sprinting towards them, blasting away corpse abnormalities with sonic booms and air cannons. Qing Lang and his group were also stunned. Were they being helped? Kill it! The cannon woman took aim with her weapon, locking onto the target. Boom! The bat abnormality, however, let out a loud laugh. There was even a person covered in stones sitting behind it, who blocked the attack. The stone monster crashed onto the ground, stirring up a huge cloud of dust. It slowly pulled out a walkie-talkie. "Hello, hello, boss. The Vanguard squad has reached their position, but..." It scratched its head. "I can't distinguish who's our boss's people and who are the enemies." "You idiot," the boss obviously said. The bat abnormality paused. "All right, I forgot too." Left Hand stared dumbfounded at this scene. "You guys really are." There couldn't really be such a rule on the battlefield of the Land of Strange Tales, right? Actual divine reinforcements falling from the sky? At that time, the walkie-talkie crackled again. Copy that, this is the first squad. We're almost at your position." "Hello, hello? The 7th squad will be there shortly." "5th squad? Cough, cough. We're not far." "Damn it, Move it, losers pay up. Listening to this cursing and swearing, people sank into a long silence. What on earth was happening? And soon, in the distance, one squad after another of abnormalities began to appear from all directions within everyone's line of sight. Countless of them, swarming in, their numbers far exceeding their imagination, each one looking more ferocious than the abnormalities by their side. The cultists' foreheads beaded with sweat, and Goldie and his comrades didn't dare to make a move. Qing Lang and the others also looked uneasily at the scene, unsure whether they were friend or foe. And just then, the clamor from the abnormalities suddenly lowered quite a bit, and they made way for a path. A figure seemed to be slowly walking through from within their ranks, and everyone stared fixedly. Who was it? The boss mentioned just now among the abnormalities? And in the next moment, the face of this figure also came into their view. Qing Lang and his group trembled with alarm, their pupils shocked, and they blurted out, Su Buxian. Goldie was dumbfounded, muttering to himself, Su Buxian. He also exclaimed in shock, Who the hell is that? Chapter 105. Where does this place lead to? Su Qi faced everyone's shock with a compliant look around. Is everyone here? Oh, wrong. Seems like we're missing two. He lowered his head and said, Late arrivals, moment of silence. The abnormalities respectfully followed suit, bowing their heads. They aren't dead yet. Qing Lang couldn't help but speak up. Su Qi revealed a smile. Is that so? Then it's all good. He turned to the bat abnormality and the stone monster. How many times have I told you? If you dress like you're attending a funeral, you're the enemy. The cultists ground their teeth, sweat still beading on their foreheads, as they stared intensely at Su Qi and the mass of abnormalities. They recognized a small fraction of these creatures from the casino, and it seemed they had come out in full force. A cultist, with a hoarse voice, focused his gaze on Su Qi. Who exactly are you? Su Qi, however, narrowed his eyes and didn't reply, only murmuring softly, Kill them! It wasn't just for a day or two that these cultists were known to be untrustworthy. Plus, they had the totems of the evil god. In this Linyuan land, just projecting a goat's head could invoke a descent event, let alone with this bunch. F***CK. Goldie watched as a large number of excited abnormalities rushed into the attack. Trembling, Run! The cultists turned exceedingly pale. Escape that way. Without hesitation, they each burst forth with their strength, heading for an area not occupied by abnormalities. Qing Lang, Red Blade, and others' gaze sharpened. Stop them! They can't be allowed to leave. Su Qi didn't move, but looked over. Brother Rabbit? Brother Rabbit, in his prison garb, didn't move a muscle as countless little rabbits, eyes blood-red and fangs bared, swarmed towards the people from that direction. Left Hand watched the rabbits in a daze. Why does it feel so familiar? Qing Lang and the others. Su Qi's gaze rested on the mass of rabbits and abnormalities. He didn't need to lift a finger. Su Buxian, what was that message just now? Left Hand couldn't contain himself and blurted out. Freaking so cringeworthy. Su Qi patted his shoulder, speaking earnestly and sincerely. When we arrived at this haunted location, we began splitting up to search for you. But this place is quite vast, making it difficult to find traces of you. Just then, he pointed at the bat abnormality. It's extremely sensitive to sound, so I had to resort to that trick, having you yell out. Thankfully, we weren't too far. Otherwise, we might have just missed you. Anyway, your role was undoubtedly crucial. Left Hand listened to Su Qi's serious and sincere tone, momentarily stunned. So it was like that? Wait, no! He suddenly snapped to realization, his voice turning shrill. Even if you need me to make noise, you could have used other methods, not by shouting something so shameful. Left Hand clenched his teeth and added, And that embarrassing action. Su Qi calmly looked into the distance. What's past is no longer important. Just as Left Hand was about to speak, a strange aura crashed down suddenly. The black tornado was even more violent than before, seemingly connected to some place, forming a bizarre passage. Su Qi spoke softly. Where are they? Qing Lang related Yun Zhantian and the man's plan to take down the black-robed man. What's wrong? Su Qi spoke calmly. I've studied the night sky and I've seen. These cultists seem to have come prepared. He directed his gaze into the distance. Though the bodies of those cultists were being torn apart by the rabbits, the runes continued to surge from their totems. Especially under the strange power connected by the black tornado, they were twinkling incessantly. How could this be? Qing Lang and the others' gazes shifted slightly, as they were eager to deliver the finishing blow. It's useless. Su Qi watched this scene unfold. Was he too late to kill it? He had learned from other abnormalities that this group of cultists in black robes was collecting a large amount of abnormal blood and corpses. Su Qi had sensed something suspicious at that time. These guys didn't need to engage in any fighting, yet they actively sought out abnormalities, which made Su Qi uneasy. Therefore, at that very instant, Su Qi didn't waste words and took action directly. Unexpectedly, it was still too late. What place does this battlefield connect to? Su Qi looked toward the black tornado, which by now had expanded to an alarmingly large diameter, blanketed by thick black fog, like a massive black cyclone. And within the eye of the storm, visions began to appear. Su Qi couldn't help but warn everyone. Close your eyes. Children shouldn't be seeing this. Red Blade was momentarily confused. What? What's there not to see? There are no children here. This was his first time seeing Su Qi, and he didn't quite understand him. And then, the next moment, the visions produced by the hurricane, with their horrifying twists and low moans, seemed as though countless demons were struggling within. Everyone broke out into cold sweats. Fortunately, Qing Lang and the others were prepared, closing their eyes early. They only felt a slight assault on their ears but were still able to bear it. But Red Blade and the others accidentally glimpsed it and were instantly overwhelmed by the polluting onslaught. Spiritual power -2. Damn it! Red Blade and the others shuddered, their minds and spirits greatly shaken as they quickly shut their eyes tight. And the various abnormalities also hurriedly closed their eyes. Having spent years in Pure Land City, they were much more experienced than the players. Only Su Qi kept his gaze fixed. He ignored the continual prompts of spiritual power dropping by -2 to 2, looking at the visions that revealed a multitude of strange scenes where countless people were fighting beneath huge statues, and numerous indistinct black shadows were engaged in battle. Monumental buildings were now in ruins, along with strange yellow rivers, broken bridges, interwoven with raging flames, and even a towering gate resonated with thunderous noises, leaving one to wonder who could possibly open such an immensely grand gate. Su Qi's gaze did not waver. Even though his spiritual power was being depleted far more severely than before, plummeting to a dreadful -7, he did not stop, because he saw many too far to reach, just like when he first saw the billboard for Abyssal Paradise. Densely packed. The visions. No, these were definitely not just visions. Previously in the Lost Land, the illusions created by the white mist did not contain any because those were all fake. But now, Su Qi finally slowly closed his eyes, as the corners of his eyes had begun to bleed. Although he could afford the loss of spiritual power, that didn't mean it wouldn't affect him. And his spiritual power had just reached a rate of decrease of 50 per second. Even for someone like Su Qi, it was unbearable. If he continued to look, what more would he see? And merely looking was already this terrifying. If he were to step into that place, what kind of level would it be? Su Qi didn't know, but he was very interested. He was always driven by a strong desire for knowledge. Unfortunately, amidst the countless shrieking noises, he couldn't hear anything. And with his eyes tightly closed, he could see nothing. Everyone was the same, plunged into a situation of deafness and blindness. And just then, someone suddenly reached out and patted Su Qi on the shoulder. Chapter 106. Accidents abound. Let's die together. Su Qi had his eyes closed, his body still. Why would someone tap his shoulder at this time? Su Chi wanted to squint to see, but the hissing in his ears and the chilling sense of deadly fear made him give up this dangerous idea. So, Su Chi turned around and threw a punch, but he hit nothing. The other party paused for a moment, then tapped him again, as if to say it had no ill intentions. Su Chi then crouched down for a sweeping leg kick. The other party seemed even more silent, and finally it couldn't hold back anymore. A strange blurriness surged into Su Chi's heart, and then a voice slowly emerged in Su Chi's mind. "It's me, Ghoul." Su Chi paused slightly. Oh, was it the black shadow with the scythe that had paved the way for them in the alley before? I mean, no harm. Time is of the essence. Please listen to what I have to say. The black-robed man's voice was hoarse yet heavy. Pure Land City. The reason why it isn't disturbed by the pollution power from the Lost Land is that its sky dome is connected to the singularity of the ancient battlefield, where the past's undead were supposed to be forever sealed away. This silent day, with the singularity bursting and those evil cultists, many souls are being recklessly released. The cultists are using the descent artifact to release a powerful person's soul. This person used to be a subordinate of that entity from Abyss, possessing. Didn't you say time was urgent? Why the endless prattle? Stop! Su Chi interrupted it. Skip this part, please. I don't care about any background, history, or logic. Just tell me who the enemy is, and what the reward is. Black-robed man, listening to the words of the past, knowing the current situation, these are secrets that others crave to uncover but can't. Forget it. You can open your eyes now. The burst of the singularity has already ended. At this moment, the hissing had ceased. Su Chi immediately opened his eyes and turned around to find that the black-robed man was just a phantom, an illusion, and the feeling of it tapping his shoulder was also an illusion. It seemed others couldn't see it. The black-robed man's voice came through. I am communicating with you through a spiritual body. My actual body cannot move too far from the alley. And now, look over there. Su Chi shifted his gaze. At this moment, many cultists' bodies were weirdly contorting, bodies flipped upside down but limbs supporting them, their chests' patterns bursting with many black lines connecting to the void like some sort of aurora. They are now connected to the main ritual, channeling the prepared power inside the totem, attracting the soul from the ancient battlefield, and the body is also ready for it. On a high hillside, a mass of mutated corpses, flesh continuously pouring into a place, mixing, combining, turning into a 10-meter-tall hulking mass of black muscle. Everyone's gaze was filled with astonishment, and many abnormalities felt uneasy. Can it be interrupted? Cannot. The main ritual has started. That deceased soul has already felt the pull. Even if you attack this body, this flesh would quickly reassemble. How powerful was it originally? Destroying this land of strange tales with a slap wouldn't be a problem. Question mark. Su Chi coughed. I just remembered there's an old hen stewing at home. I'll be taking off. Contact me on WeChat if there's anything. The black shadow hastily said. Don't go. It's now just a patched-up body, only able to harness power through the ancient relic of descent. It's very weak. Just wait for it to descend. Kill it. Take that ancient relic, and it will be kicked back. Ancient relic? What is that? It's a kind of item, possessing special bloodline traits. The black shadow whispered softly. Su Chi paused for a moment, although a word was changed. Somehow it sounded very familiar, but it seemed that was the so-called hidden resurrection tool. At this time, a flash of lightning crossed the sky dome, and within the hurricane, a chill seemed to be spreading. At the same time, Yun Jiantian and a man's figures suddenly appeared on the hillside. Their bodies had been thrown from the peak of the mountain, crashing heavily onto the ground. Thud! Both were covered in injuries, spitting blood from their mouths. It was a ghastly sight. The black-robed man also appeared on the hillside, his eyes crazily fixed on the sky dome, muttering to himself. One of the old bishops, resurrected. I am a follower of the true God, and I am honored to witness your return. The black shadow spoke in a slightly deep voice. I can feel it. It's coming. Act fast and kill it the moment it enters the body. Otherwise, there will be no more chances. The land of strange tales is sealed, and all of you will die. Su Chi nodded slightly, smiling. All right, I understand. He spoke with a hint of deep meaning. But I'm more curious as to why you're so proficient. The black shadow fell silent, and Su Chi didn't press further but quickly grabbed the walkie-talkie. Hey, the third squad is the long-range group, right? Where the hell is your Italian cannon? This black-robed man is over there praying. Blast him down. Understood. The black-robed man was devoutly kneeling when he sensed firepower coming from all directions, and his expression slightly shifted. What is this? And all other squads, be prepared. The moment this giant's body moves, strike together and burst out with all your strength. Su Chi squinted his eyes. What about us? Left Hand was taken aback. What? Do you also need me to direct? Su Chi paused. Then quickly restore your physical strength and attack from the back and side, hitting its lower 3 spots as hard as you can. Right, that thing? Who can still summon the mecha? Lend it to me. Steam Boy silently watched Su Chi. A paradise object can be used only once in an instance, consuming 99% of physical strength value, and cannot be replenished in the short term. Then why are you even over here listening to the strategy? Go sit at that kid's table in the back. Su Chi talked incessantly, and all abnormalities and players were ready. During this period, amidst a barrage of gunfire, the black-robed man madly laughed. You have no idea what you are facing. A crazed expression painted his face as he looked toward the sky dome, and a dreadful, cold black shadow that carried some twinkling light descended from the singularity at an untraceable speed. It merged directly into the giant's body. Cold, shivering, the giant's body slightly trembled, exuding a more eerie aura than the previous congealed dead matter. Strike now! Everyone, including the abnormalities, acted together, as did a massive amount of rabbits, all pouncing toward it. Their speed was incredible. Giving their all. They realized too that, with the land of strange tales sealed, if this monster was resurrected, they couldn't escape either. Kill! And just then, the giant suddenly opened its eyes, flashing with a strange light. In the next moment, boom! The strange light in its eyes ignited a series of waves, creating a terrifying and shocking impact centered around it. Everyone was blown away. The black-robed man was also blown away, laughing. Even if its body is fragile, this isn't something you can resist, he rasped, his eyes fierce and mad. From now on, all of you will be devoured alive, becoming part of Lord Bishop's strength. The Black Shadow was extremely anxious. Bad! The powers of other evil cultists have been absorbed in advance, and the ancient relic on it is taking effect, making its strength stronger than we imagined. Bad? Not necessarily. Su Chi lifted the sound system and leaped up, the eerie sound of the past causing both the black-robed man and the giant to momentarily falter. He rapidly closed in. Brother! Su Chi stared into the giant's profound and gloomy eyes, saying, Let's die together. Without any hesitation, he activated self-destruction as his physical strength and all enhancements reached their peak. Chapter 107 Unrivaled. This was Su Chi's first time using the self-destruction skill, as he had no opportunity to test its power before. But at this moment, he realized that the self-destructive, do-or-die skill was far more powerful than he had imagined. To put it in one sentence, Su Chi seemed to turn into light at that moment. Boom! A terrifying explosion engulfed both the giant and Su Chi, and the resulting shockwaves stirred up a massive amount of debris. The abnormalities watched the scene in stunned silence, witnessing Su Chi's charred body flying out, falling to the ground motionless. They let out incredibly heartbreaking roars. Brother Su! Their voices were so strained that it made Qing Lang and the others' eyelids twitch. These abnormalities cared so much about Su Buxian. Some even beat their chests and looked up to the sky, wailing in agony. You haven't told us the vault password yet. The black-robed man also gazed in stunned silence. The giant's body had a huge hole blasted into it, yet this old bishop hadn't fallen. Its eyes flickered with red light and a hint of fear, yet it suddenly reached out desperately toward the distance. It grabbed a group of abnormalities directly, throwing them into its mouth. In that instant, a flickering item inside the giant's body emitted a bright light, and its body was rapidly recovering. Everyone was shocked and immediately acted in unison. Yet the giant snorted coldly, sweeping everyone away with a slap of its palm, its voice as chilling as the 9 netherworlds. Having barely escaped from that sunless place, how could I go back? Although its breath was still feeble, the ancient chill it emitted struck fear into everyone. I need flesh. I need your power to restore mine. This voice, filled with an endless terror, hammering at everyone's hearts like a pendulum. The abnormalities trembled all over, now realizing that this was a high-level existence they were dealing with. What should we do? Go all out? Is it too late to beg for mercy now? Or should we run? The players turned pale but found no way to handle the adversary. Run! This figure seemed to have rediscovered the depravity and superiority of its past bishop role, its eerie and profound eyes looming over everyone. None of you can escape. You'll end up dead like that ant who defied me. Its voice suddenly stopped, as if frozen while looking at Su Qi's charred corpse. Because at that moment, Su Qi's body trembled. He propped himself up from the ground, slowly standing, then patted the soot off his body. Under the somewhat stunned gaze of the giant, Su Qi coughed, taking a physical potion and drinking it. Sorry, I was overly weakened just now. I couldn't even move my fingers. The giant's eyes grew cold. It didn't understand how such a frail human could survive such powerful self-destruction and not die. With a terrifying presence in its eyes, the giant declared, "Since that's the case, this time, I will kill you myself." It surged forward, its massive body charging. Since other powers in its frail body couldn't be used, it had to rely on brute force. But the terrifying strength of its body was enough to crush everyone present. And at that time, Su Qi stretched out his hand and gently blew, as if he was blowing sand off his palm. Then he took out the thunderclap bone-shattering hammer. Facing countless fearful glances and the overwhelming aura of the incoming giant, he looked at the players and softly said, "Fellows, actually, I am the sect hierarch of the world's #1 sect. I once had glory, but my power was sealed. I need each of you to transfer me 10,000 game coins to break the seal." The players, "Stop joking," Left Hand roared. Su Qi paused. "Or maybe if you repeat that spell loudly now, you might also unseal the power." Left Hand clenched his teeth. Damn it. Forcibly recalling a memory just to bring it up again. Su Qi shifted his gaze, looking at the rapidly approaching giant and the fierce wind. He shrugged. "Never mind, I still have to rely on myself." The next moment, Unrivaled activated. Instantly, a series of prompts appeared continuously. Equipment effect not activated. Skill unusable. Your attribute panel has changed. The weakness gradually fading. Su Qi's body filled with imposing strength. He looked straight ahead, that gaze making the giant feel an inexplicable unease. How could it be? A mere human like an ant? Boom! Su Qi suddenly disappeared from his spot, leaving only a large cracked pit where he stood. His body shot forward at high speed like a cannon, meeting the giant head-on. Question mark. Its profound eyes were shocked. He was so fast. Su Qi also gripped the thunderclap bone-shattering hammer, raising it high and with an immense force, struck directly at its head. Although the equipment effect wasn't activated, it could still be used as a weapon. Bang! The giant, standing 10 meters tall, actually flew out hard. Everyone was shocked. The black-robed man was sweating profusely. He roared inside. How is this possible? Su Qi didn't hesitate and pursued his victory. Now consuming 3% of vitality every second, he only had 30 seconds of unrivaled, completely without time to waste. Boom! The giant's body fiercely crashed down, creating a huge pit. Su Qi's figure closely followed, the hammer dropping again with a thunderous crash. Its head cracked open entirely, a large amount of blood gushing out. But it seemed as if the ancient relic inside was helping it recover. You tried to speak. Su Qi didn't give it a chance, the hammer dropping like a pile driver on a construction site, brutally crashing down. Once wasn't enough, then twice. If twice wasn't enough, then 10 times. The crowd and the abnormality also followed, their scalps tingling as they watched this scene. At this moment, the man seemed to sense something and growled lowly, "Be careful!" as the giant was being smashed, its body cracking open and blood splattering. It surprisingly shot out a shocking red glow from its eyes, turning the entire sky dark red. A massive burst of spiritual pollution suddenly erupted. To me, the huge spiritual impact carried the eerie and terrifying essence of its soul. It was like a giant beast hidden in the abyss letting out a thunderous roar. Everyone present's eyes whited out. Under the spiritual impact, they all collapsed one by one. It also weakened significantly. Originally having little strength left, its soul was feeble to the extreme, and this forceful burst had cost it a lot. However, it had no choice. If it continued, it would truly be defeated by a mere ant. Fortunately, now, it was startled for a moment, looked up to see the gradually enlarging silver hammer, and the chilling voice. "You don't really think this move will work on me?" Bang! The strike penetrated its body, causing its entire flesh to expand and burst. At the same time, the flickering ancient relic inside was revealed. Su Qi didn't hesitate, braced his foot, and leapt forward, reaching directly for the ancient relic inside. This creature's terrifying recovery power was naturally not due to itself, but because of the traits of the ancient relic. To truly kill it, it must first be deprived from its body. Su Qi didn't have much time left. The giant also sensed an incredible danger, truly an extraordinary existence. Even with its body torn apart, it still had the strength to spare. It punched itself. Boom! The ancient relic shifted position with the impact. Damn it! There wasn't enough time. Su Qi watched the last 3 seconds. He remained calm and decisive, lifting the hammer high. Then I'll just blast this entire piece directly. His hammer carried a terrifying howl, and the entire hammerhead aimed at the newly shifted position of the ancient relic, his body also bravely piercing through it. Spurt! A massive hole violently exploded in the flesh, and this time, he finally saw the ancient relic falling from its body, a blood-stained golden feather, nestling on the distant ground. The giant trembled all over. Its body was also gradually collapsing. Su Qi's time was also up. Fortunately, he landed ahead of time, otherwise with just a 5% vitality, he would have straight away died. But even now, a huge feeling of weakness and the aftershocks of dizzying power made it difficult for Su Qi to get up again. The giant could still speak, though incredibly weak and with only half of its body remaining, falling into a fading dying state, but still dragging its fingers towards that feather ancient relic. "I haven't finished yet." Its voice trembled unbearably, hoarse and dry, as if ready to die, relying solely on soul strength for its last struggle. Although he couldn't stand up, he could still speak and decided to use words to persuade. "Stop crawling. Have you become a bug? Can't you just lie down nicely? Let's chat? Discuss something about salary issues. Being a bishop for evil god, you must have a high salary, right? Hey, stop crawling." Su Qi watched anxiously, knowing this creature was only 3 meters away from the ancient relic. The giant struggled while crawling and hoarsely whispered, "I am one of the old bishop of evil god, a terrifying existence from the ancient times. A mere mortal ant dares command me." It was constantly getting closer to the ancient relic while knowing Su Qi didn't have the strength to stand up. 2 meters, 1.5 meters. It was weak yet excited to get closer. "Once I recover, will torment you harshly." Couldn't stand being humiliated by a mortal again. What was its status and what was the others? And just then, A faint buzzing noise suddenly arose. A seemingly insignificant mosquito flew slowly from somewhere and aimed directly at the giant in an arced flight path. Chapter 108. Mosquito Bro's first kill record. The giant seemed to be completely oblivious to the mosquito's approach. Perhaps it had noticed, but simply didn't care. After all, it was just a mosquito. The mosquito slowly landed on its mortally wounded body that was falling to pieces, unnoticed as it focused intently on the ancient relic. It was right there, right in front of it. If only it could reach that place. Then it could. Zing! The mosquito gently kissed its skin. It was only then that Su Chi realized how twisted this skill was. With just one bite anywhere, it would result in a direct loss of 1% of the maximum vitality. At that moment, the feeble body of the giant shuddered suddenly. Already broken and hanging on to its last bit of strength, it was headed towards its goal when a sudden wave of weakness from the draining of its life force overwhelmed it. What's happening? Why am I becoming more powerless? Its expression showed a trace of change, becoming panicked and uneasy as it looked at Su Chi, only to see Su Chi smiling back at it. Do you feel drained, with weak knees and a lack of spirit, as if your body has been hollowed out? That's a sign of kidney deficiency. The old bishop's spiritual body, it tried to crawl forward, but its strength and life force dissipated once again. If it had been in its prime, it might not have noticed this strange sensation. But now, in its dying state, it was all too sensitive. Thud! Finally had no strength left to go on. It looked unwillingly at the blood-stained feather just a meter away and fell face first to the ground. Eyes fixated on Su Chi, voice weak and powerless. What exactly did you do to me? Su Chi, watching its trembling body, said, Be clear with your words. Don't act like I drugged you. To be killed by a mere mortal. Its mental state was on the verge of collapse. After barely breaking free from that dark, sunless place, and just as it was about to accomplish great things, it hadn't even lasted as long as a round of mahjong before having to return to its origin again. Su Chi calmly responded, Don't accuse me recklessly. It wasn't me who killed you. Look at that mosquito, it was its doing. The old bishop looked dazed, and the mosquito, its ears twitched slightly. The buzzing sound slowly started up, and a tiny mosquito circled its way up from behind its ear. Then, without any courtesy, it landed on its face and extended its tiny proboscis. Buzz! The giant was stunned, because it was feeling its fragile body rapidly disintegrate under this bite. To think it was all because of a mosquito, a creature even more insignificant than an ant. Its face turned red, as if subjected to some great humiliation, and with a final burst of anger and shame, it roared at Su Chi. When I return, I will tear you to pieces. This is possible? The giant's eyes dimmed, as its massive body completely lost its life force. The next moment, it seemed that a blurred shadow was being drawn toward the singularity in the sky dome, twisting and struggling to no avail. Su Chi didn't see its spiritual body. He just saw a question mark. As one of the bishops from the old days, it has sworn to tear you to pieces. TSK. The figures coming from a believer. The evil god wanted to reduce him to ashes. The bishop wanted to tear him to pieces. Why were they all so fixated on him? The target had died, and it seemed the mosquito had vanished with it. This was the first person to fall to its first kill, and what a significant figure it was. Not bad, a promising future. Su Chi closed his eyes, still in a state of extreme weakness. Luckily, there was no danger at the moment, and the 10 minutes of the non-recovery period was drawing to a close. At that time, Su Chi felt that he had jinxed himself as he heard the sound of staggering footsteps. He opened his eyes and saw the black-robed man, looking dazed and in disbelief at the giant's body. Su Chi felt that his bad luck had struck. How did this person not faint like the others? He thought about it. With the evil god totem on him, it seemed normal that he could resist the effects. Impossible. Impossible. After all my efforts. Why did it turn out like this? The black-robed man muttered to himself, his voice hoarse with madness and unwillingness consuming him. His eyes pinned on Su Qi. "It's all because of you, Su Qi. If I told you it was killed by a mosquito bite, would you believe me?" The black-robed man growled low, his eyes bloodshot and filled with blood vessels. "I'm going to kill you." He dragged his weak body from the hillside, holding a long saber, murderous intent emanating from him as he approached Su Qi. Su Qi stared at his skill's cooldown time, which couldn't be restored, and there was still 1 minute left. "You bastard! Aren't you coming out to save me?" The black-robed man didn't know who Su Qi was talking to, but he clenched his teeth tightly. "No one can save you now." And in the next moment, a black shadow emerged from Su Qi's body, holding a scythe and surrounded by a vague black fog. The black-robed man's expression changed in shock, halting his steps. "Who are you?" The ghoul slowly lifted its gaze, its voice hoarse and icy. "Are you sure you want to know?" Its aura burst forth explosively, making Su Qi squint his eyes, and even more so causing the distant black-robed man's entire body to tremble. The totem on his body grew slightly hot, as if sensing something. His legs went weak, seemingly ready to submit before it. The black-robed man clenched his teeth, shakingly raising a finger. "Why? Do you possess the aura of my master?" And the ghoul slowly pulled down its long robe, revealing a totem on its chest that clearly held an extraordinary evil power, far surpassing that of the mere black-robed man. "If you don't scram," its voice was extremely cold, "I will devour you." At that moment, the black-robed man finally showed fear of death. Unlike being killed by others, if they were killed by higher-ranking totem-bearers, they could never return. He rolled and crawled away, frantically fleeing until he was soon out of sight. The ghoul slowly turned its head and stared at Su Qi. "You're not going to just lie there, are you?" Su Qi slowly propped himself up with one hand. "Don't worry. Even if you couldn't scare him off just now, I would have recovered enough to be able to kill him." He knew the true body of the ghoul wasn't here, that the black shadow in front of him was only an illusion, without a trace of combat ability. What this guy was best at was illusion techniques. The ghoul paused. It remained silent for a moment before speaking. "So, you don't seem surprised that I have a totem?" "There's nothing to be surprised about." Su Qi really wanted to say, "Should I also tell you that your leader's eyeball is right here with me?" Now thinking back, everything seemed traceable. No wonder this guy both dreaded and feared, eager to send him away like a plague spirit, and intimately knew about the old bishop's descent. "I'm only curious, why? Do you want to stop all this from happening? After all, you two have a totem, you're a member of them." The ghoul sighed deeply, its face shrouded in black fog suddenly showing a hint of age and reminiscence, and its tone had more sorrow and melancholy. "The story goes back a long, long time ago. Back then, I was very young, a little priest, once influenced, holding boundless reverence for that being, endlessly killing for the sake of power, until eventually, a little priest is like a class leader, right?" Su Qi suddenly interrupted. "As a class leader, you suddenly had an awakening, decided to wash away your sins, and chose not to be a cultist anymore, becoming the ghoul." He paused. "It should be like that, right?" The ghoul fell silent. It coughed, its voice heavy. "This awakening process, that is the critical turning point that changed me. It was a winter with snow flying everywhere." At the moment, Su Qi had already stood up. He dusted himself off, took out potions for restoring physical strength and vitality, and gulped down 2 mouthfuls, instantly feeling refreshed. "I wonder if this stuff could be mixed with beer? Wouldn't it taste even better straight from the can?" The ghoul, "Listen to people when they speak. Is my story really worth nothing to you? Anyway," the ghoul exhaled, looking at Su Qi. "You've already been hated by the old bishop, and its spirit is in that ancient battlefield. Judging by the recent actions of these cultists, they seem to want to revive the power of the old days and release that being in the abyss. You've probably been blacklisted by the fleeing guy, and soon your name will spread among the cultists. Very soon, a bounty order will be issued, and wherever you go in any world, envious abnormalities will be targeting you. Su Chi paused, so ordinary players could also have bounty orders issued on them. He laughed unconcernedly. No problem. I've already made enough enemies. The ghoul? And Su Chi still had an unexposed bounty order for a despicable person. Considering this, everything else seemed inconsequential. The ghoul sighed. I must return now. Its spiritual body couldn't last much longer. Having just used an illusion technique had made it even more translucent. I hope the next time I hear your name spread throughout the multiple chaotic seas. The ghoul's spiritual body gradually vanished from sight. Chapter 109. Do you want my treasure? Su Chi mumbled to himself. The day will come. At this moment, his physical strength had recovered to 40%, and his vitality from 5% to 30%. As he was nearing the end of his recovery, he decided not to fully replenish his status. Reaching out, Su Chi picked up the blood-stained feather. It's a pity I didn't have time to ask it about the ancient relic. As he examined the feather, the panel slowly appeared before his eyes. Name: Phoenix Feather. Type: Ancient Relic. Quality: Immortal. Note: Congratulations on obtaining a hidden resurrection tool that allows transformation to a special profession. You can initiate a trial for the transformation and acquire a profession with its traits once you reach level 20, with a chance to unlock it. This is a great item, but it seems a bit weak right now. He could feel his wounds slowly healing, a different concept from before. Su Chi had witnessed the giant's recovery power, which was very exaggerated. Could it be related to a high-order soul level? But he wasn't in a hurry. Su Chi placed it in his item slot and strode towards the exit. At this very moment, everyone else was forcefully awakened because the instance prompt had appeared. Linyuan Land main quest has ended. Each player may only remain here for a maximum of 1 minute. Their expressions changed as they looked around, only to find Su Chi writing something on the ground with a small stick. Brother Su, what about that terrifying creature and the black-robed man? Yun Zhantian was a bit stunned. Su Chi calmly said, The fact that I'm here can only mean one thing. You killed it. Left Hand exclaimed in surprise. No, Su Chi corrected him. It was killed by a mosquito. Red Blade looked at Su Chi. That hidden resurrection tool must have been claimed by you. Finally finishing his writing, Su Chi nodded. That's correct. He suddenly coughed loudly, his body trembling. And right now, I'm low on physical strength, not much of a fighter. If you all pounce on me, I'll be defenseless, and perhaps in one round, I'd have to hand over the treasure. Red Blade said, Although it's common for conflicts of interest to arise at times like this, causing breaches of contract and scrambling for possession, he roared. But is your lousy acting supposed to be showing contempt for us? Moreover, who said I was going to take action? Red Blade hesitated. I'll offer 10 million game coins, no, 20 million, to buy it. Question mark. Su Chi's hand holding the stick quivered slightly. Damn oligarchs. After all, the current trend for Gamecoin is almost maintaining a good 1-to-1 ratio with RMB, occasionally fluctuating, but it remains within an 80% range. The man patted Red Blade's shoulder and shook his head. The things one acquires by giving their all cannot be measured by money. Red Blade sighed helplessly and nodded. Sorry. Pretend I didn't say anything just now. Sui. He looked towards Qing Lang and the others. Why don't you try making an offer? Qing Lang and the others shook their heads. The more precious a hidden resurrection tool is, the greater the risk of the trial. If we could obtain it ourselves, we might give it a try, but we can't afford to pay an additional price. Left Hand blinked. Brother Su, I'm a student. Give it to me as a gift. You wouldn't even make it as a newborn. Su Chi knew the other person was joking, but he pondered and said, However, if you could shout that spell one more time, in front of at least 1,000 people, I would bring a megaphone and a video camera among other professional equipment to provide you with a better stage. If you can do that, I might consider it. Left hand shivered all over with a roar of anger. Who would do that? Even if I, left hand, were to jump off here and die outside, I would absolutely never recite such a thing again. Su Chi shrugged his shoulders. That's too bad. Everyone also packed up some things. They all had more or less gains in this Linyuan land, although it was a pity they did not get the last hidden tool, but they were all convinced and accepting. The man's gaze turned to Su Chi. Xiao Yun is right. You are a very interesting person, and I'm looking forward to seeing you in the ranking battles later. Yun Zhantian also waved his hand. Brother Su, I take my leave now. Thanks for your care this time. We'll add each other as friends after we get out. All right, add friends and transfer funds, right? Su Chi nodded. Yun Zhantian, is that what he meant? And you still remember that? One by one, everyone began to teleport away. Left hand side. I've also requested a friend's spot. Brother Su, don't forget me. You'll definitely make it into the ranking battles too. Then we can cling onto someone else's coattails together. Watching him teleport away, Su Chi muttered to himself. As a super rookie, saying things like clinging onto coattails? Qing Lang couldn't help but smile wryly. He must have been hit hard today. Not only was he suppressed all the way, but in the end, he didn't even get to use his trump card. Muscle Bully, touching his thick jaw beard, commented. Also, the ranking battle is after all the most important battle before entering Paradise. Super rookies are a dime a dozen, some guys are even more tricky, plus there are various beta test players. It's normal for his confidence to be lacking, but he should recover soon, no need to worry. Su Chi nodded. I see, so his recovery ability is that strong. Qing Lang and the others, you seem to have missed the main point again. Well, I'll take my leave. Qing Lang waved his hand. Muscle Bully sheathed his weapon, puffing on a cigar, and with a thick accent said, Su Buxian, I think you should join our big muscle dominator club. It suits you, the wild type well. Question mark. Su Chi. You must be joking. I've always been known for my humility and gentleness. Bai Changwei and Tuner, both already beyond the point of commenting, mainly since the main jesting party, left hand, had already retreated. One by one, they teleported away. Su Chi looked up at the dark sky dome, and the numerous abnormality creatures that lay fainted around him. It seemed that before the last teleportation time ended, these guys wouldn't wake up. But that's okay. He had everything arranged, and afterward, he too teleported away from this place. About 10 minutes later, numerous abnormality creatures slowly crawled up. They looked around in confusion and at each other. Are we still alive? Not eaten. Where's Brother Su? And that monster? They couldn't figure out what had happened until someone let out a strange cry. Come here. It looks like there's something Brother Su left behind. On the ground, there was a stick tied to a flag, on which a simple pattern was drawn. The pattern was a bit sloppy, like a stick figure scribble. But that was not the most important thing. There was also writing under the flag. Quick, what's written? Read it to us. The discoverer trembled. I'm illiterate. If you can't read, then why are you shouting so loudly? Let me see. A Dr. Abnormality in a white lab coat pushed through the crowd. It looked at the writing and was a bit stunned. Want the treasures of the vault? If you do, then go look for them. I've placed everything there, left by sect hierarch of the Hustlers. Chapter 110. Settlement. Resurrection Tool. Player ID 985211, Su Buxian, has left Linyuan land. This instance was initiated by a special item, Settlement in Progress. You have obtained triple the experience and 12,923 game coins for this level. System matching is not provided. No rating will be given. You have won a special lottery draw. Prizes include all skills, items, equipment, etc. from this instance. Su Chi returned to his personal login space. He instantly realized that his level had skyrocketed to 20. You have gained 18 plus 19 plus 20, totaling 57 attribute points. You have reached the current stage's highest level. To unlock the next stage, enter Paradise. 50% of surplus experience will be stored. Note, you are now eligible for a profession change and must possess an ancient relic. The Transcendence system will activate during an instance, triggering a trial. This wave actually raised me directly to level 20. Su Chi murmured to himself. And there's quite an overflow of experience, too. He was in no rush to allocate his attributes. Instead, he took out the blood-stained feather, the very item that was a transcendence tool. It appeared highly valuable. Red Blade once outright offered 20 million for it, possibly even more. Su Chi then took out the ancient god's heart. Now finally at level 20, he seemed able to inspect this item. Not an easy feat. Obtained it from the second instance. What a journey it had been. Name: Faint Heart. Type: Ancient Relic. Quality: Legend. Note: you are still not qualified to fully understand it, and possessing it doesn't mean you can become it. Just remember, this path is fraught with thorns. Su Chi was somewhat surprised. He remembered it had been called the Dead Heart before, so why had it changed to Faint Heart now? And the note was as good as saying nothing. But it was an ancient relic. Does that mean he could use it for the profession change? Damn, you're the backup now, Su Chi said, looking at the phoenix feather. The horrifying recovery ability of the undying bird was quite attractive. But given a choice between that and the heart, Su Chi would surely choose the latter. Not to mention its bizarre quality, just the unknown aspect. It really suited Su Chi's taste. At that moment, something unexpected happened. The ancient god's heart trembled slightly, and the phoenix feather was unconsciously drawn to it. Su Chi didn't even have time to react before the feather was absorbed by the heart. The scene was somehow familiar. Last time, during the Night Demon instance, it was attracted to that bud and absorbed the entire pollutant. And now it just swallowed another ancient relic. You just suck everything up. Huh. I hadn't even decided yet. You just forced the decision on me. Su Chi promptly tried to retrieve it, but once the feather entered, it seemed to melt away and disappeared entirely. Meanwhile, the heart beat with a bit more vigor, acquiring a new breath and a pattern on its surface. Is this that feather? Su Chi paused for a second, surprised as he recognized the pattern. The heart had no consciousness. It was merely an ancient relic containing essence, but could it instinctively absorb pollutants to regain vitality, judging the worth of that feather to incorporate it into its pattern? Thinking this, Su Chi took out another item, a broken sword from that eerie battlefield. It looked like it had been used by a formidable swordsman, and he had discovered it was also an ancient relic which could even be taken out of the instance, though it was of ordinary quality. Eat? Can I feed you this? Su Chi offered the heart this ordinary quality ancient relic, but the heart paid no attention to it, seemingly deeming this rubbish unworthy of its standards. Very well, very well. You're so noble, so impressive. Your reputation has increased. Su Chi paused when he saw the sudden message and smiled. It seems they've finally noticed. He left two ways to open the vault, one being a second-order nonlinear partial differential equation. The other was to have them carve the words "The Hustlers Sect Hierarch" devoutly into the central door plaque of the casino and place the flag in the most conspicuous spot to declare this area as his territory, which would allow entry to the vault. From the reputation perspective, they chose the latter. Of course, all this was nonsense. Before he left the casino, he had used the artificial team's counterattack, which successfully malfunctioned so that the latter could be opened directly without doing anything. However, Su Chi murmured to himself, this also saved their lives. At that moment, Night Guard extended an invitation. Brother Su, come to the club for a gathering. After putting the items back in the item slot, Su Chi pushed open the door and entered the club. Su Linqiu was also there. He seemed to have been waiting, nodding to Su Chi. Congratulations. It seemed he had gotten the news firsthand. Su Chi wasn't much surprised. He still had many things to ask this guy, and at that time, boom! Night Guard suddenly set off the ribbon cannon and cheered. Congratulations, Brother Su, for obtaining the Hidden Profession Resurrection Tool. Su Chi said, Are you kidding me? He only then realized Nightguard had plenty of little gadgets. Was it really worth spending such precious game coins on this sort of thing? Not bad, very much in the spirit of the Hustlers sect. You should know. What happened inside? Su Chi said, now sitting down, looking at Su Lingqiu. I heard from others. Su Lingqiu nodded but then shook his head. I know what you want to say. From the moment we received the intelligence, we knew the cultists were seeking that particular resurrection tool, but the specific use was a blank part. Besides, this resurrection tool indeed had a high value, so we started spreading the news to attract others to enter. After all, we only had 6 spots here, and it didn't matter who got it. The most important thing was that the cultists didn't get it. You did hide some good information. Su Chi guessed that someone from the first sequence also knew. That person should be their leader, the man with the heavy sword, who directly went with Yun Zhantian to disrupt the ritual, and upon waking up and seeing that it was him, he even breathed a sigh of relief and wasn't too enthusiastic about the resurrection tool. Su Lingqiu sighed helplessly. It's not really hiding. We just had a significant lack of information, and before you set off, I said anything could happen. All right, Su Chi lazily said. Can you provide me with some information on profession changes? I'm not very familiar with this area. Su Lingqiu agreed without hesitation. No problem, but I need to remind you, all trials for hidden professions will be extremely difficult, and if you fail, the resurrection tool will disappear with no second chance. I'm sorry, but that thing is already gone. Of course, the quality of the hidden profession tools varies, but if cultists are searching for it, it must not be of ordinary quality. Su Lingqiu didn't ask in detail, and the profession belonged to personal privacy. He himself also had a hidden profession, naturally knowing how important the traits of a profession are. But I must remind you. Su Lingqiu looked at Su Chi. Currently, the Transcendence system is not yet open. Once the number of level 20 players exceeds 100,000, the version will update, and at that time, changing professions will become the most important matter for all players. The trials for your hidden profession should be fully prepared before attempting to activate them. Otherwise, if you fail, the consequences will be severe. You will not only need to search again, but it may also affect subsequent ranked battles. Su Lingqiu said seriously, it's not just about entering paradise. Chapter 111. Homemade Rankings. A new mode. At that moment, atop the casino in Pure Land, there sat a man. This man, dressed in a white robe, sported a faint smile on his face. A smile that was utterly terrifying. Below him, all the abnormalities trembled as they knelt on the ground. They had never imagined that the master behind the casino would actually come in person, and had been sitting there since the beginning, without showing anger or intent to kill. He did nothing but scrutinize the flag. He slowly finally shifted his gaze towards the crowd. What are all of you kneeling for? Wasn't it all done by that guy named Su Buxian? He murmured to himself. I'm a reasonable person. I only deal with the initiator. He chuckled lightly. Rise. Some of the abnormalities steadied their minds and stood up. Ah, you really stood up? He said, slightly surprised, as he threw a long chain from his hand, which pierced through the chest of the abnormality and then pulled it in front of him. All abnormalities showed fear in their eyes, but no one dared to intervene. He held the other's neck with his hand, gazing into its fearful, agonized eyes. Let me ask you a simple question. If you can answer it, I won't kill you. He still had a smile on his face. Who am I? The abnormality trembled but dared not struggle. Its neck choked so it could barely breathe, yet still managed to utter, You are the young master, offspring of the Ash Spirit King, the master of the casino. He revealed a shocked expression. It seems you know, then why would you dare to do such a thing? It was all Brother Su. I know Su Buxian. I would sacrifice my life and loyalty for the young master, never betraying him. Is that so? Let's see. The young man let out a bizarre laugh, reached into the abnormality's chest with his hand, his palm directly entering the crevice in the abnormality's internal organs. Blood surged massively, and the abnormality was in excruciating pain. Screams echoed in the ears of every abnormality. After about 20 seconds, the young man pushed the fallen corpse aside, throwing the heart and lungs on the ground. He slowly wiped the blood from his hands. "I am the master of this casino, and you all are mere stray dogs let in." As he spoke, he continued, "Stray dogs taking advantage of the master's absence, daring to break the rules, becoming disobedient, must be punished." He suddenly paused, revealing a look of aggrievement. "You wouldn't blame me, would you?" All the abnormalities trembled as they shook their heads. "That's good. That's good." The young man patted his chest, taking a long breath. Watching the young man's actions, all the abnormalities dared not even breathe heavily. He was inherently brutal, truly unpredictable. One could never know what cruel acts he might commit next. Yet the young man also lost interest in this group of abnormalities. He took down a small wooden flag next to him, reading the script with considerable interest. "So you call him Su Buxian, huh?" His smile carried a hint of eeriness. "I'll remember this name, and I'll take this flag too. But rest assured, soon both it and he himself will be in my collection." Su Buxian, currently mentioned, was sitting in an upscale restaurant, facing Night Guard. The two often met at the club, and this time they had specifically arranged to meet offline mainly because Night Guard needed to pass some information to Su Qi. Now that they were here, Su Qi didn't hold back, ordering several signature dishes from the menu. His appetite had grown considerably lately. Night Guard, holding a tablet, paused slightly. "Brother Su, look. Paradise has already published the list of potential players, the list of players currently at level 20, and the list with an overall rating above 80. Night Guard shook his head. "But this is just a list, and currently, rankings are not determined." Su Qi wiped his mouth with a napkin. "Does it mention my name?" "There is, but only above the level 20 list. The other two lists couldn't record it. With the help of Paradise's power to fetch data, insufficient authorization naturally couldn't cross the threshold of hidden rating records, which is why no rankings had been determined so far." Su Qi knew the reason, but he wasn't the only exception. While eating, Yishou flipped through his tablet and chatted with Su Qi. "By the way, Brother Su, there's a huge ruckus on the forums now." "A ruckus? What's there to fuss about?" "Since Paradise has yet to release any rankings, someone made their own list and had netizens vote. But since fans of major star players don't acknowledge each other, it sparked arguments." Listening to these words, Su Qi commented, "This almost sounds like fan culture." Yishou wasn't surprised. Normal. Before the reputation system was launched, many uploaded videos from their instances, and it was already viral. After the reputation system's launch, the players' intentions grew stronger and the hype skyrocketed, turning many players into star players. He paused. "Including those super rookies I mentioned before, who actually have quite a reputation. Of course, everyone's main focus is on strength. And although clubs help build their careers, star players who can't keep up definitely won't last long." Interest piqued. Su Qi asked, "I'd like to know who these star players causing all the fuss are on this fan-made list." "Let me check." Yishou looked at the tablet. One is called Handsome Young Man. This guy is really charming. The comment section is full of people calling him bro and hubby. The female players are this crazy? No, it's mostly male players. The second is Tang Xin, a female player who likes to use a clip-on voice. She seems to have some skill but is better at marketing. Facing various monsters, she often pretends to shiver, eliciting sympathy and protection from others. The comment section is full of people calling her Mama. No wonder there was an uproar. A fan-made list. This was just a fan fest. By the way, Brother Su, your ID is also on the fan-made list, ranked 8,987th with 5 votes. Su Qi mumbled to himself. These 5 fans seem to have good taste. One of the votes is from me. Not bad. I'll give you a supporting award. Su Qi didn't really care about such entertainment-based lists. Reputation was something, whether in instances or among the player community. Su Buxian never pushed for it. About half an hour later, Yishou went back to continue grinding instances. He wanted to quickly reach level 20 and even paid for someone to accompany him to achieve a perfect score in challenging instances. After all, scoring below 60 meant no draws for prizes, and both experience and game coins were reduced to a tenth. Even barely passing wasn't enough, as lottery items and high scores had a big gap, much like a certain penguin's free pool versus the premium pool. Su Qi also took a cab home, reviewed some material, and then logged into the game. As soon as he entered his personal space, he received an email from the system. Please note, level 20 players can enter the new mode, Endless Slaughter. In this mode, player death carries no penalty, and spiritual ability points can be accumulated. After ending the instance, this mode will enter a cooldown period, during which it cannot be entered again. Attention! Spiritual ability points are extremely precious. They are fundamental for class change, ascension, profession traits, and more. Players, please handle with care. Chapter 112. Entering the new mode. A new mode? And there's a cooldown period. Su Qi read carefully. Besides the content mentioned just now, there was no other hint. He still had no idea what the situation inside was like. He did not rush to enter immediately. Instead, he first distributed the attribute points he had gained from leveling up yesterday, a total of 57 attribute points, 27 to physical strength, and 15 each to strength and movement technique. Although these attribute values increased slowly, they became the most important foundation for widening the gap after changing classes. The question is, I still don't know in which direction the ancient god's heart is aiming. Strength and speed dual cultivation, or an all-around warrior? And then there are traits, ascending items, etc. Anyway, although he hadn't started changing classes, Su Qi had already decided to become an all-around warrior. After all, others had to consider the spiritual attribute, which he completely didn't need to bother with, and he could still be far ahead of everyone else. Why not do it? It should be so for the leader of the Hustlers sect. Su Qi looked at his own panel. ID, Su Buxian. Level, 20. Vitality, 100%. Physical strength, 1100. Strength, 67. Movement technique, 58. Physical strength, 110. Spiritual power, 625. Current game coin, 49,213. After adding the points, the character's basic attribute panel was more or less fixed. At least it wouldn't change much before changing classes. At that moment, Left Hand sent a voice message. He had sent a friend request the day before, and so had Qing Lang and Yun Zhantian among others. Su Buxian, up for a game? Let's rush to level 20. Don't you see the string of numbers in my personal info box? Don't they look like the level 20 you just mentioned? Left Hand exclaimed in shock. How did you reach level 20? Weren't you level 17 just yesterday when you entered the instance? Su Qi said, puzzled. Isn't it normal to level up 3 times in one instance? Normal my ass. Left Hand was somewhat flustered. So are you going to enter the new mode now? You know about that too? Of course, our Dragon God Club also has players who have reached level 20, and we have a lot of important information about this mode. If you're interested, I can offer it to you for free. Dragon God Club? See, I told you there really are dragons. Listening to Left Hand's persuasive tone, Su Qi paused for a moment. Why do I feel like you guys want to poach me? Left Hand didn't deny it and coughed. Part of it is that, but it's mainly about exchanging and cooperating to maintain friendly relations with various clubs and players, which is our club's consistent style. But, he said earnestly, Su Buxian, you should consider it. You have a hidden profession tool in your hand, and the difficulty of its trials is anticipated to be very tough. Our club can provide assistance, and after you change classes, we won't let you down with ascending, resources, etc. That tempting? However, Su Qi mused. Actually, there's a better way. You could start by offering a series of assistance in resources, information, tools, etc., and then, you would gain precious friendship. Left Hand roared, "You just want a free ride, don't you?" He realized that Su Chi was indirectly refusing. This guy was hard to pin down, his thoughts were unknown. Left Hand said helplessly, "Forget it, I won't argue with you. I'll send the key points of the new mode to your mailbox." He then left to rush to level 20. About 2 minutes later, Su Chi finished scanning the email. There were many points of information. Many were related to Paradise, and the words pollution and collapse were mentioned numerous times. It seems this mode has some substance, and it also appears to be offering a word of caution to all players. Su Chi closed the email, then used his last lottery draw from yesterday. The items in this lottery pool all came from Linyuan Land, which was considered a special pool. After the lottery box rattled for a while, a small spinning top with a black reflective surface appeared. Name: Fingertip Universe. Damaged version. Type: Spiritual ability equipment. Quality: Low quality. Function: Spin the top, and before it stops spinning, you can drag any target into an illusion and inflict spiritual damage based on the target's mental state and your own spiritual attribute after it ends. Consumption: Spiritual power 100. Usage requirements: Profession must reach sequence 9. Spiritual power 98. This item is growable. Collect 5 D-grade pollutants to upgrade it. Note: Ever heard of Inception? Su Chi was moved. Finally, I have equipment that can cause spiritual damage. However, I can't use it yet. He had to wait until after class transfer. According to the announcement made by Paradise and the speed at which many players were grinding, it shouldn't be much longer. Su Chi opened the matchmaking. Enter Endless Slaughter mode. Attention! This mode does not differentiate between solo and team play. Participant numbers are random and unlimited. Matchmaking successful. You are about to enter an instance. As the prompt appeared, Su Chi felt himself being swept up by a surging tide. The sounds around his ears this time didn't seem to have an eerie tone, just a system-generated alert sound, but it was intermittently breaking up, as if the signal was poor. Welcome to the D. Before the voice could finish, it abruptly cut off, and Su Chi felt as if he was pulled under the water's surface, drowning in it. Su Chi slowly opened his eyes, and he found himself leaning against a storage room in a warehouse, where the chilly air mixed with a hint of mist seeped in from a high window, through which he could see outside appeared to be a vast expanse of white. Does this look like a big supermarket? Su Chi noticed many goods around him related to general merchandise, daily necessities, food, and such. Has there ever been such a wonderful start? In the past instances, the start would always involve the smell of blood, corpses, danger. Now he could actually boil some noodles to eat. But soon Su Chi realized he was mistaken. Bang! Outside the storeroom, a loud crash and a flurry of terrified screams could be heard. He opened the door to the storeroom. He saw that there were a bunch of people inside the supermarket, and outside the glass railing of the supermarket, a large black monster was hitting the glass in the mist, seemingly wanting to get in, and the cracks on the glass were getting more and more numerous. The crowd shivered, increasingly panicked. This scene seems familiar. Judging from the current situation, I guess it's my turn to save them. Su Chi slowly took out a packet of potato chips. After tearing it open, he ate unhurriedly. He could see that the monster was stronger than a normal person, but that was about it. He could easily deal with it if he acted, but he wanted to wait and see. It seemed like someone was approaching, and the glass had already shattered. The people retreated in horror. What do we do? We're doomed. Help! Just then, as the monster was about to break in, Su Chi's gaze turned toward the back of the mist. Whoosh! A javelin shot out sharply from the midst of the mist, pinning the monster to the ground. The monster struggled incessantly. The next moment, a figure sprinted forward, decapitating its head. He held a walkie-talkie, scanned the crowd in the supermarket, pausing on Su Chi for a moment because, while others were retreating in terror, this guy was still eating chips. He said into the walkie-talkie, "Over a dozen non-combatant ordinary people found in the 9th District. I will lead them to the nearest safe zone for refuge." Chapter 113. A different instance. The fog enshrouded the dilapidated streets above. The crowd clung close, following the man as they moved forward. "Be careful. If a monster attacks, whatever you do, don't run or make any noise," he said gravely. If it were just him, whether to fight or flee was his choice to make. But leading so many ordinary people increased the danger significantly. Su Chi also followed at the end of the group. A little girl with a ponytail, held by a woman, couldn't help but look at the potato chips in Su Chi's hand. "Big brother, are they tasty?" Facing the little girl's adorable, desirous big eyes, Su Chi smiled and said, "They're not tasty." The little girl. Su Chi wasn't being mean. This little girl couldn't handle even a bit of these chips. It seemed they were contaminated by the fog. Anyone with a constitution under 50 would be affected, somewhat like the second instance of the polluted world. However, the effect was relatively minor, but it was better not to eat them if possible. "Can you tell me what they taste like?" The little girl pursed her lips and asked obediently. "Dear patron, please don't be so obstinate." Su Chi wanted to describe it with some words not fit for mealtimes, but considering her innocent eyes, he ultimately chose leniency. "They taste like caterpillars." The purity in the little girl's eyes altered for the first time. The middle-aged woman quickly pulled the little girl along. "Don't get distracted. Stick with mommy." Su Chi looked away. According to the information he received from Left Hand, the main content of the new mode was that players would enter a so-called semi-collapsed or collapsed world, killing pollution monsters to get spiritual ability points. Simply put, it was an opportunity for players to grind instances, with numerous level 20 players having already entered. Without any main quest, all one needed to do was kill, without any need to advance through the instances. But Su Chi felt somehow different from the others. And at that moment, Su Chi suddenly looked into the distance, aware that there were groups of crawling monsters. However, the man also had a sense of something, and he spoke in a low voice. "Be careful, stay silent. Hide with me. Don't make any noise." The fear in people's faces was clear as they followed him. The only place they could hide was in a store with its door open nearby. But clearly, he had misjudged the level of panic ordinary people had under the fog. A blond young man, agitated and anxious, kept looking ahead, without noticing what was under his feet, and he tripped over a bicycle. Clack! The bicycle was about to fall and make a noise as it lost balance. The man's face paled, but in the next instant, Su Chi reached out and steadily grabbed it. The man sighed with relief, looking at Su Chi with increased admiration. The young man seemed to be mentally resilient. There shouldn't be any problems now, right? But after a few more steps, immediately afterward, a middle-aged woman accidentally stepped on a nail on the ground. Her face showed pain as she instinctively prepared to cry out in agony. The man was quick to act, covering her mouth and swiftly motioning with his eyes for her to endure. The middle-aged woman nodded with a pale face. And at that moment, another gust of wind blew by. A poster advertisement in the store next door leaned and then fell over. Su Chi held it in place with one hand, noticing that something was off. These series of accidents were too coincidental, almost forcefully trying to make some noise happen. And the man looked at Su Chi again, this time giving him a thumbs up, seemingly praising Su Chi's quick reflexes. Fortunately, no more incidents happened in the following few steps, and the crowd managed to take refuge in the nearby store as they had wished. The monsters had already crawled over in the street. There were about 5 in number, each with a different shape, emitting a foul stench. The man motioned for everyone to stay still. Only when these abnormalities had left could they continue on. But then, at that moment, an unexpected event occurred, this time involving a white collar in a suit. The ringtone blaring from his mobile phone was piercingly shrill. The man's complexion changed dramatically, and everyone else shuddered. And Su Chi had a look of on his face. Your mother's kiss, it's still ringing? And just skipping the act outright. Su Chi could now be certain that this chain of events was no coincidence. It was too preposterous. The white-collar's face had gone deathly pale, and he fumbled frantically to silence the ringtone. But it was already too late. And those 5 monsters roared and charged over here without hesitation. They're pretty fast. Su Chi had deduced that this creature was different from the small monsters in the supermarket earlier. It was strong, at least capable of battling a night demon. The man bellowed and hurled a spear with explosive force. Bang! The spear actually managed to force one of the monsters back. This guy was also strong. He was no ordinary man. In such a situation, Su Chi also pulled out the 100-man slaughter blade and, under the astonished gaze of the man, burst forward with incredible speed. Are you an enhancer too? But then, the man could no longer afford to be surprised because he suddenly noticed one of the spike-covered monsters coiling its body. His eyes suddenly alert as he looked toward the people behind him. Watch out! The monster suddenly unfurled its body, and a mass of spikes burst forth. Whiz, whiz, whiz. Their power could actually penetrate glass and steel. Su Chi and the man didn't need to worry, but behind them came the agonized cries of ordinary people. In that situation, Su Chi had no choice but to leap into the air, zooming towards the monster with the 100-man slaughter blade in hand, and he brought it down. Spurt! A wave of green blood sprayed out, which, although not corrosive, smelled foul. You have killed a monster, earning 1 spiritual ability point. Please note, any monster can only give spiritual ability points the first time it is killed. Su Chi was somewhat baffled. What did it mean by the first time? Could it be this monster could be killed twice? And working together with the man, it took them less than half a minute to kill the remaining 4 monsters. The man, panting heavily, rushed back into the store. We need to leave quickly, or else the noise from before will. Suddenly, his voice seized up. In the store, a little girl with a ponytail was lying atop her mother's corpse. Her eyes bloodshot and face pale, crying in despair. The continuous yet fractured sound was heart-wrenchingly painful. Of the 12 ordinary people, only 4 survived, including the little girl. Su Chi picked up a spike from the ground and said softly, "This has poison on it. If touched, an ordinary person would die instantly." The crisis unfolded too rapidly. Mingled with an eerie string of coincidences, it seemed as though it was fated to occur. And he's right. If we don't leave now, even more monsters will. Su Chi's words abruptly stopped as he squinted. At that moment, the girl's crying was fading, the man's face was fading, and the surrounding scenery was increasingly twisted. The corpses of the creatures seemed to come back to life and their roars reverberated, appearing to rewind as well. Not just the monsters, but the scenery itself was rewinding, and it was accelerating, until the final moment, darkness suddenly swallowed him. After a brief spell of astonishment, Su Chi slowly opened his eyes, gazed at his surroundings, and fell silent for a moment. He had once again returned to the beginning of the instance, the storage room. Chapter 114 Huge Anomaly? Su Chi stared at the familiar storage room and opened its door. He then saw those 12 ordinary people again, looking terrified at the small monster outside the glass. All right, back to square one. I came here for a killing spree in the new mode. Why has it become similar to a solo instance? It seems like the others don't have main quests. This intelligence from the left hand, the deviation is a bit too big. No wonder people say you can't trust things that are free. If the price is too low, you fear it might bring disease. Su Chi silently regarded the scene before him. He was contemplating why everything had reset and started all over again. In most games, this kind of situation usually happens when the player dies, the plot fails, or a key NPC dies, and then it resets to the beginning. Su Chi obviously hadn't died, and if they were to go by the previous situation, they could have continued forward with the remaining people to a safe zone. So thinking over and over again the death of a key character, maybe that was the reason for everything resetting. If following this line of thought, then the question arises, who is that key character? Among the 12 ordinary people, 7 had died from the toxin stingers. Su Qi scrutinized them closely and found nothing special. He wasn't in a hurry either. This time he switched to a bag of nuts, contaminated too, but it didn't affect the taste, and was more suited to Su Qi's physical constitution. Then next, it was the standard procedure. The man arrived, killed the monster trying to break in, and led them to leave for the safe zone. Is there any other route? Su Qi asked. The man gave him a strange look, shaking his head. No more. The nearest safe zone is only through this route. All right, but before we prepare to leave, I need to do something first. ? The white collar looked at Su Qi approaching him, a look of horror on his face. Ah! 1 minute later, the group once again cautiously stepped onto the street, the white collar man looking sullenly at Su Qi, his phone already confiscated and turned off. Big brother, does it taste good? The little girl blinked her big Cardillon eyes again, her fair cheeks somewhat coy, gazing at the nuts in his hand. This time it's cicada pupa flavored. And soon, they were outside the shop again. Be careful, keep silent, follow me and hide. Don't make any noise. The man's commands were exact. Even his tone was identical. Everyone started towards the only open shop on the side. Meanwhile, Su Qi had already moved the bicycle ahead of time, avoided the nails, and even laid the signboard down. Everyone looked perplexed at Su Qi's actions, then carefully entered the shop. 20 seconds later, hush! The man extended his finger, and everyone fell silent. Watching the street's monster, they trembled. Just when Su Qi thought they had made it. Bang! Suddenly, a balloon in the shop burst. Everyone's faces paled. Only Su Qi fell into silence. This was no longer a mere coincidence, no acting involved. Or is this the rule? Things that are destined to happen will indeed happen. What followed was naturally another fight. Su Qi going all out with his firepower. Since it had happened already, just kill them straight. Good news, the monster was killed. Bad news, there were still casualties. Good news, 2 people died, but it didn't reset, indicating his guess was right to protect the key character well. Bad news, they had lingered too long, attracting the surrounding monsters. What should we do? The man couldn't help but look at Su Qi. What else can you do? Just keep your ID in your mouth. Su Qi looked at the dense crowd of monsters, knowing he had to go back. But before doing so, he decided to kill a few. He turned on the speakers and grabbed the thunderclap bone-shattering hammer. Took about half a minute. Everyone was killed by the monsters. The timing of death and the reset's twisted sensation clearly lagged. Su Qi found himself back in the storage room once more, sitting up from the darkness. He muttered softly, "As it stands, I must protect this key person, and I still don't know if this reset will keep happening indefinitely." Of course, there was an even more brutal method, which was to do it himself, kill one by one, and find the person within one cycle. However, as a kind, gentle, sunny, cheerful young man, this went against his character setting. Or should I let the monsters do it? More humane, maybe? Although Su Qi said this, he was already thinking of ways to break the situation, firstly to keep deaths to a minimum, and secondly to quickly deal with the fight. Once other monsters were alerted, it would naturally be extremely dangerous. The monsters in this fog seemed to be much more numerous than expected. Given that, he went through the process again. Su Qi clearly took it much more seriously, even switching his snacks to sugar. Watching the little girl hesitate to speak, Su Qi handed her a piece of candy. "Here, eat this." "Thank you, big brother." "No need for thanks. Pay me back next time, with 1 candy per day as interest." The middle-aged women couldn't help but look towards Su Qi. Is this even human speech? The little girl, however, nodded seriously. The candy was stored in the item slot as a snack and wasn't contaminated. and anything that stayed in Su-Chi's item slot was tasty. Soon, they arrived at the shop. Su-Chi realized that these 5 monsters were an unavoidable checkpoint, with little chance to skip it. He might as well go all out instead of being constrained. "What do you plan to do?" the man asked, noticing Su-Chi with the speakers, his eyelids twitching. "Next, I'll draw them away, and you all should use this time to enter a safe zone." The man's face changed slightly. "But you'll die. Somebody has to make a sacrifice, right?" Su-Chi patted his shoulder, his smile firm yet determined. The man watched, shocked, as Su-Chi walked away from the shop, his eyes revealing complex emotions. Such a noble sacrifice. The little girl opened her mouth to speak, but the middle-aged woman quickly covered it. And the 5 monsters had already noticed Su-Chi's figure and rapidly attacked him. Then he drew them away. The man growled, "Let's hurry." Despite his youth, he had such awareness. He absolutely couldn't let him down. The little girl looked back one last time, but she couldn't see anything through the fog. At this moment, Su-Chi was like a fish back in water. He could finally fight alone. As soon as he turned on the speakers, the thunderclap bone-shattering hammer burst out with incredible strength, slaughtering wildly. The new mode was just a farming mode. It didn't have many roundabout ways, but the biggest problem was physical strength. With a large number of monsters, continuous combat and bursts gave him an advantage. But if it went on too long, monsters would come from all directions, giving no chance to breathe. Though I don't know why a storyline has appeared here. I've already sent them through, and according to the timing, they should be reaching the safe zone soon. No reset meant they were still alive. After another 5 minutes, bodies surrounded Su-Chi. He was panting slightly, but his eyes were filled with exhilaration. His body was cleansed by liquid metal, though the thunderclap bone-shattering hammer was stained with various blood and flesh. 1 monster equals 1 spiritual ability point, currently just hit 50. This is harder to farm than I thought. There hasn't been a reset, so they must have entered the safe zone. At that moment, a prompt appeared in front of Su-Chi. "Disconnected. The servers of Abyssal Paradise are just like this." Bang! Su-Chi smashed a monster that lunged at him into pulp, unsure of the situation. The disconnection was just a jest. After all, those who know understand that Abyssal Paradise isn't just any ordinary game. And more messages slowly popped up. "Please note, a massive abnormality has occurred in the world players inhabit. The system cannot intervene. Please, players, find your own way to escape." Chapter 115. Cold light on the back. Boom! Su-Chi slammed his hammer into the monster, retracting it as the 100-man slaughter blade appeared in his hand, and then he started to run forward. He opened the exit interface, and sure enough, the force quit option had turned gray. What is this massive abnormality? And how do I escape? Give me some hints, system bro. Thankfully, the system hadn't completely disconnected and was transmitting information painfully over a 2G network. "It is catastrophe, chaos, master of destruction. In this world, please make good use of reset, kill it or..." You list such an imposing title? Sounds like a formidable existence. And then you want me, a newbie who just reached level 20 and hasn't even entered society, to take it down? And be clearer about that last part. Damn it, the system's signal was severely blocked, and it disconnected for a little while. Add. Su-Chi's eyes lit up. Add what? Add fuel. The system completely lost connection, and the prompt box slowly faded. Question mark. Su-Chi felt the need to report the Paradise System's glitch. But, as Su-Chi ran, he cut through a monster's belly with his blade, dodging the gushing blood. You have gained 1 spiritual ability point, currently 57. At least this prompt is still here. The system isn't up to par, he'd have to rely on hacks. Su-Chi was heading towards the safe zone. He still lacked enough information. The previous questions hadn't provided much crucial content about this entity representing catastrophe and chaos, the master of destruction. And make good use of the reset cycle? That seemed to be to his advantage. Su Chi hurried along. He had received plenty of clues from a man earlier, naturally including the address of the safe zone. It was a high school. At first, Su Chi was surprised by the choice of a school for the safe zone, but when he arrived, seeing the high enclosed walls and the cables prohibited from climbing, he thought, this place wasn't a bad choice. Who? Someone at a high spot near the gate raised a spear towards the fog. Then his eyelids twitched, just as he spotted Su Chi coming. It's a survivor. Open the gate. The gate was a fortified, heavy iron door, pushed open by both electricity and manpower, creating a small opening. As Su Chi turned back to look at the fog, a guard called out with a hint of urgency. What are you doing? Come inside quickly. Su Chi spoke emotionally. I never thought I'd step into a school again. It feels like I'm suddenly back in my school days, so it's a bit emotionally complex. Guard. Complex my ass. Su Chi shifted his gaze, having felt a chilling presence at his back. Albeit momentarily, he had caught it, but couldn't see any figures in the fog when he looked back. Su Chi stepped inside the gate, and the heavy door shut with a thunk. Were there other survivors who just arrived? Su Chi looked at the guard and asked. The guard appeared surprised as he looked at Su Chi. You were with them, right? The guy who volunteered to be the bait? Su Chi quirked an eyebrow. You've heard my story too? The guard nodded. Everyone thought you were dead. But that little girl said you would survive and asked me to keep a close watch on the gate. Not bad. It was worth loaning you that candy. The guard sized up Su Chi, still somewhat incredulous. So how did you survive? Even for an enhancer, facing an assault from 2 or 3 monsters is deadly, not to mention being chased down the streets. Su Chi held up 2 fingers. Just a little bit lucky. He entered the school, which wasn't very large, consisting only of 2 classroom buildings and an auditorium. Everyone was gathered inside the tightly closed auditorium. The fog. It's getting worse. Can we even survive? Why has it come to this? There were many survivors in the auditorium, about 200 people, all lethargic and dismayed. An air of despair as if awaiting a disaster. You! A man who had been talking in the distance suddenly saw Su Chi and quickly walked over with a look of surprise. You're actually still alive. Su Chi. Where are they? The man stretched out his hand and pointed. Over there resting, undergoing examination and treatment. Several nurses were carrying medical kits, drawing blood from each person. Examination? Su Chi asked. Examination of what? Before this, he hadn't had much time to learn about the situation. Now, there was an opportunity to talk. The man appeared surprised. You don't know? It's been a month since the fog first burst forth. There was an announcement on the internet before the fog descended widely. He said incredulously, You couldn't be a reclusive otaku, could you? How rude. Firstly, it's quite normal not to go out in such creepy fog, and... Su Chi spoke calmly. My home internet has been really bad recently. I'm not naming names. Paradise System. Su Chi planned to skip this part and update his own information first. Although the man found it odd, he began to tell the story. Su Chi listened carefully and understood more. The fog had descended 3 times. A month ago, 2 weeks ago, and now each time lasting 5 days. Initially, one could still wrestle by using various heavy weapons for suppression. But by the second time it was completely uncontrollable. Because these monsters seemed endless, impossible to kill. They gathered continuously upon hearing noises, and they became stronger as time passed. Many survivors could only defend from strongholds, gathering all the enhanced fighting forces in the fog. Ordinary people who stay in the fog too long might exhibit dangerous symptoms. Earlier, many did not die at the hands of the monsters, but perished in the fog. After hearing this, Su Chi was certain the fog was a manifestation of pollution, and it had also produced many pollution abnormalities. There must be a pollution source not inferior to the previous bud. Every pollution source carried different abilities and indications, representing the primal pollution power with great expansiveness, danger, and uncontrollability. I finally have some idea, Su Chi pondered. Just don't know how this is connected to that so-called catastrophe destruction and the reset cycle. What kind of ability is this? At that moment, they had already seen him. Their eyes slightly brightened. With hearty warmth, Blonde raised his hand. Bro, you're still alive. Su Chi walked over, his gaze sweeping the group. These 12 people had all survived, among them a key figure. He began to carefully look at the question marks over each person's head. Information changed every 10 seconds. The girl wearing earrings, a somewhat silent middle-aged man, a reserved old lady. He took an unexpected look at a long-haired youth, who turned out to be a crossdresser in private. Trouble. It seemed none of them were simple. The man also came over, smiling and speaking to the others. Next, rest up well. We will guard this place, not letting the monsters in. Just hold out for a few days, and we should be able to see the light again. Su Chi's gaze shifted to the fog outside the window. Is that so? I doubt it. The duration of the fog lasts longer each day, and the monsters grow stronger each time. I fear the next fog will spell the doom for the entire city. Su Chi noticed that the information about the man was accurate. These enhancers had been anxious about this issue recently. The monsters were much stronger than the previous 2 versions, and they were about to break down. The man. He was well aware of these facts too. You young man, can't you see I'm trying to keep everyone calm? Noticing the alarmed and fearful glances from the crowd, the man sighed deeply, his tone solemn as he grasped the knife in his hand. Don't worry, we have some leads already. This time, we will completely resolve the source of the fog. At this statement, Su Chi, however, suddenly paused because, in that instant, he felt a chilling spike at his back, an unconscious reaction when one's spiritual power reached a certain threshold. Su Chi sensed something was amiss, without any hesitation. At the last moment, his gaze flicked to the group. Then, the entire scene twisted and reversed. Next moment, Su Chi appeared, outside the iron door, the surrounding fog letting him realize he had reset again. The guard once again raised their weapon, warily calling out to someone. The familiar scene did not prompt Su Chi to respond. He was silent. One question dominated his mind. Why? Chapter 116 Master of Destruction appears. Everything happened too suddenly and inexplicably. This time, everyone was there and they were all safe. Why did it suddenly reset? It's the survivors. Quick, open the door. Su Chi stepped into the safe zone again. He stood outside the grand hall and pushed the door open. He remembered that, before the reset, he felt a chilly stabbing pain in his back. This time, Su Chi did not seek the man to gather information, although he came forward to greet him, but Su Chi's gaze still scanned the 12 people. He believed the key to everything lay among these 12 people. It was the same old routine. The nurse began to prepare to examine them. After all, they had been in the fog for too long. Mild symptoms could be alleviated. Once polluted, it would be too late. And it was at this moment. Su Chi noticed a detail he had not seen before. 5 people refused to have their blood drawn, indicating there was nothing wrong with them. A middle-aged woman, a white-collar worker, a blonde, a bearded uncle with a hat, and a young girl. They all claimed they had no abnormal symptoms, and the little girl was also skipped under the middle-aged woman's refusal. Faced with this situation, Su Chi pondered, because from the question mark above the heads of the 5 people he saw information. The young girl, because she was afraid of pain, did not want to have her blood drawn. The other 4 had secrets they didn't want others to know. White-collar, middle-aged woman, bearded uncle. He strode over, held back the nurse who was about to leave, and looked at these 5 people. It would be best to have a blood test. But we don't have any symptoms. Under the nurse's stunned gaze, Su Chi calmly opened the box, looking for a syringe, and shook his head. Among the monsters we encountered before, there was one that could spit out poisonous gas. This gas is colorless and odorless, with a latent nature. Ordinary people like you won't notice it right away, but if ignored for too long, it will burst. His words left everyone looking stunned, and a man nearby came over and was surprised as well since he did not know about such a monster. And the nurse couldn't help saying, "We can handle this kind of thing. No worries, I'm a professional." Su Chi's movements were swift. Each step was performed without any sluggishness, very professional and skilled. Hearing him say this, the few people couldn't help but tremble with fear. Despite their fear of pain, they still extended their arms. The blonde and white collar were hesitant, but considering their lives, they too extended their arms, revealing densely packed needle marks. Now Su Chi knew why these two didn't want their blood drawn. The bearded uncle also slowly extended his arm, his gaze calm as he appraised Su Chi, his profound eyes as if measuring him. The bearded uncle's voice was deep, speaking in a barely audible tone with a hint of chill, slowly saying, "Young man, you better be careful when you draw blood." Why is that?" Su Chi narrowed his eyes, ready to switch the syringe for a dagger at any moment. But the bearded uncle's gaze was somewhat cautious, glanced around to make sure no one was listening, paused, and then whispered, "Because I have AIDS." Su Chi considered whether to just pull out his 100-man slaughter blade and kill him right then. When it was the middle-aged woman's turn, she too extended her arm without hesitation or questioning. Instead, the little girl suddenly spoke up, "Big brother, can you not draw my mom's blood? Don't worry, he's not hurting your mom. Just regular blood draw." The nurse, seeming quite fond of the adorable porcelain doll-like little girl, comforted her warmly, even trying to reach out and pat her little head. And the little girl stepped back to avoid it. Su Chi continued his smooth actions without any hesitation. "Little friend, if I don't do this, the poison gas will cause your mom to die." The little girl fell into silence and did not speak again. Su Chi approached the middle-aged woman with the syringe, and just as he was about to inject her, a sudden chill swept over his heart. The middle-aged woman held a dagger in her other hand, fiercely stabbing upwards from below. Without any hesitation, Su Chi crushed the syringe and pulled out his 100-man slaughter blade. He held it in front of his chest. Bang! Su Chi's palm felt numb, her strength comparable to those monsters. It seemed he had finally found the right person. He said with a smile, "Auntie, I was kindly helping you draw blood, but you wanted to bleed me instead?" This noise also attracted the attention of others. The middle-aged woman, her eyes fixedly stared at Su Chi, seemingly convinced that he was the root of all trouble. "You, damned aunt, why meddle in affairs?" Su Chi narrowed his eyes, because he noticed some red spots in the woman's eyes. Numerous patterns inside seemed about to break free. A deadly sense of danger seemed about to burst from within. Without any hesitation, he raised his blade and charged directly at her. And the next moment, the middle-aged woman burst out with a low roar. A terrifying force, accompanied by a shocking spiritual impact, swept around from her as the center, and everyone in the hall, under this impact, they all bled from every orifice, their heads bursting apart, including the enhancers who fell down convulsing. Everyone died. Su Chi, being closest to her, was directly the main target of the impact. Not only that, he was also blown away by the strong air wave. Spiritual power -50, current spiritual power 575. Such astonishing spiritual damage. This was different from spiritual pollution, which had a continuous, twisted effect. The attack the middle-aged woman used was a tangible burst. "Not likely. You're so strong. How did you just die to that monster's poison stinger?" After releasing this move, the middle-aged woman gasped heavily, her body patterns faintly flickering as she looked outwards with a somber gaze. "We must leave here immediately. Those things are coming." The little girl, looking at the bodies and the bloody scene, silently nodded. "Leave. Su Chi's voice made the middle-aged woman's eyes tremble as she turned her head and found that Su Chi was using the knife to support himself from the ground, unharmed, and brushed off the dust. "It sounds like you're hiding from something." The middle-aged woman was shocked. "Why aren't you hurt?" "Because I listen to NetEase cloud music. My spiritual power is different from ordinary people." As Su Chi said this, his body had already charged again under the startled gaze of the middle-aged woman. He realized that her physical combat ability and body were very fragile, but she possessed incredibly high spiritual attacks. But it seemed to come at a cost to use that power. Had it not been for his high level of spiritual attribute, he probably would have died instantly from the recent burst. He needed to stop her from using more power first, then figure out what was going on. And just as Su Chi rapidly closed in, about to strike the middle-aged woman with his blade, a twisted feeling suddenly overwhelmed him. Su Chi's form faltered, his gaze shifting to the little girl beside him. Once innocent, she now wore no expression, her eyes giving Su Chi a chill of ice-cold severity, as if she had been swapped entirely. At the same moment, above her head, the question mark also displayed information. Represents catastrophe, chaos, master of destruction. Chapter 117. Be a human. The surrounding scenes were slowly rewinding. After a brief blink, Su Chi found himself back in front of the iron gate. Standing in the mist, Su Chi greeted the guard. "Nice to see you again, brother." The guard, holding his weapon, said nothing. "Have we met before?" He shouted. "It's a survivor. Quick, open the gate." After entering the safe zone, Su Chi did not rush into the hall. He started to rapidly brainstorm and analyze. The little girl was the so-called master of destruction, the big boss. It seemed she only had the ability to reset and lacked formidable combat strength. She was also very fragile. And that middle-aged woman was clearly her protector, possessing extraordinary strength, but she was also extremely fragile. And from the recent situation, it seemed they were hiding from something. What to do now? Kicked a pebble by the roadside. Su Chi opened his panel. His spiritual power wouldn't recover even after the reset, adding some risks he needed to consider. The system advised to kill the little girl to escape from here. This difficulty didn't seem small. The middle-aged woman was always close to the little girl, and judging from the previous situations, once any crisis or mental stimulation occurred, the girl, as the master of destruction, seemed to activate her ability and reset everything. And she doesn't seem to have any related memories. Su Chi recalled his previous conversations with the little girl who hadn't shown any signs of having prior memories. Otherwise, she wouldn't keep asking about his snacks repeatedly. Let's not startle them this time, but understand the situation. He pushed open the door to the hall. Just then, Su Chi clearly saw the middle-aged woman giving him a wary look. Question mark. Did she have memories from before the reset? No. She hadn't shown it in the previous instances. And it was only caution, not filled with murderous intent like before. Pretending not to see it, Su Chi strode past, this time not doing anything to disrupt the process. He had decided to start with the big boss. Did you like the candy just now? The little girl nodded innocently, a stark contrast from her behavior before the reset. Want some more? Su Chi felt like he was being a creepy old man. The little girl's eyes lit up, but the middle-aged woman stopped him, whispering, "Sorry, she can't eat too much sugar. How about ice cream?" The little girl's eyes lit up again. The middle-aged woman intervened again. "That's too cold. New Delhi wafers?" The middle-aged woman, "How much food do you carry with you?" She saw hope in the little girl's eyes. The middle-aged woman forcefully ignored this, pressing her forehead. "Sorry, she doesn't like wafers." The little girl. Su Chi snapped his fingers. Hot pot. Hot pot surely works." "That's even more preposterous." The middle-aged woman couldn't help but grimace. "If you can bring out a hot pot, She stopped talking, silently watching as Su Chi took out a self-heating hot pot still smoking, which he had soaked previously at the club but never got a chance to eat, so he put it in the item slot. Any state it goes in, it comes out the same. Su Chi lifted the lid, and the aroma instantly made everyone's eyes widen. The scent of hot pot was such a temptation to the starving crowd. Even the little girl, the master of destruction, stood there dumbfounded. The middle-aged woman's eyes slightly focused, an odd strength gathering, unnoticed by others. She looked at the food without detecting any poison or tampering. She quietly sighed, "Go ahead and eat." Su Chi watched as the little girl obediently picked up the chopsticks but didn't start eating right away, instead looking at him attentively, as if wanting to say something. Su Chi snapped his fingers. "Don't worry, put it on the tab. Everyone, be human, will you?" At this moment, the middle-aged woman was also unsure of Su Chi's intentions. She cautiously sized up Su Chi, while also staying alert. The notebook she carried had reset twice at this place, and the new content warned to be cautious of this young man. Anyway, once they finished eating, she would try her best to prevent him from contacting her family head. However, the very next moment, Su Chi pulled out a chessboard. "Want to play chess? I'll teach you." Oh? Where did that come from? After the little girl finished eating, she looked curiously at the chessboard and then nodded her head. The middle-aged woman watched blankly as the two played Chinese chess. The girl understood the rules immediately, but Su Chi was unconsciously ruthless, beginning his merciless onslaught without hesitation. "You lost, General," Su Chi said with a hint of a smile. The little girl felt somewhat unconvinced, blinking rapidly. "Put it on the tab. Let's play again." Su Chi snapped his fingers. "Sure, you've got the spirit." However, by the third game, Su Chi started to be surprised. This little girl was incredibly perceptive, mastering all the logic in just 2 games, transforming from a beginner into a terrifying chess master. Worthy of being the master of destruction, this talent, almost catching up to his own. After a fierce battle, the little girl was barely defeated by Su Chi. She puffed her cheeks. "Again! Next time I'll definitely win." Yet Su Chi calmly packed up the chessboard and said with a smile, "Got bored of this? Let's play something else." Then the little girl saw Su Chi pulling out a deck of poker cards, starting to explain the rules anew, and she listened intently, blinking. "Got it. Got it. Then let's continue." After Su Chi won several times, as expected, the little girl grasped everything and reached an outrageous level. Yet again, Su Chi ended the game, pulling out other game tools. No asking why Su Chi had so much random stuff. His 20 item slots, almost half were filled with various bizarre things. The middle-aged woman silently watched the scene unfold. The guy didn't seem like a bad person, nor a good one, more like a jerk. Who gambles with a little girl like this and the whole time, not playing fair, switching games once he felt she was becoming an equal opponent. Unabashedly shameless. Not even turning red or skipping a beat. Isn't this bullying my innocent and naive family head? Still keeping tabs? He couldn't be serious, right? The middle-aged woman watched as the two were now playing PSP online, the little girl's eyes twinkling. She had curses she couldn't express. Meanwhile, on Su Chi's side, through various games, he had judged that the little girl, albeit the master of destruction, was not dangerous, and the middle-aged woman beside her, indeed had no memory of the earlier warnings. Otherwise, she would never have let her converse with him. If the middle-aged woman knew what Su Chi was thinking, she would definitely roar, "Did I let you? Did I let you? I've been blocking for so long. You damn well didn't see anything, did you?" And just then, Su Chi's expression suddenly paused. The Paradise system seemed to have come online again, reconnecting, remembering there was still a player trapped here. It also sent out intermittent messages. "Forbidden power. Just burst. You need to be careful. The existence of the Master of Destruction must not die by her hand." Its message abruptly ended. Oh. It looked at the scene unfolding and silently issued a symbol. Chapter 118. This is the bill for the enforcer of the Hustlers sect hierarch. The Paradise system was straining the CPU a bit. As one of the intelligent pre-warning solutions, It took over in various abnormal situations and urgently handled the abnormal states. It just didn't anticipate. The players, who should have been at a loss, were now leisurely playing games. After a brief downtime, it didn't forget its duties. Though connection was unstable and time brief, it had to provide a way out. Player has triggered mission escape. This instance is collided by abnormal forces. You need to find and kill the spiritual body of the Master of Destruction or solve the mist source. Note: the Master of Destruction disappeared 1,000 years ago. Its spiritual body in this instance does not possess great strength, but it has the ability to reset. Note: before the mission is complete, if a player dies, it will trigger the final mechanism. Please do your utmost to survive. Blessings have been provided for the player. Su Qi's eyelid twitched. He still needed to find it? It seems the other side didn't realize that the little girl next to him was the Master of Destruction. He also sensed a dangerous and ominous scent from the last note. A final mechanism? Could it be death in reality too? The Paradise system went offline again, intermittently breaking. Su Qi watched as the message box slowly disappeared, and he realized he had gained something. Paradise blessings. Players' resistances increased to 80%. Any fatal damage received by the player is reduced by 80%. All consumption reduced by 80%. Note: the power of Paradise cannot penetrate too much. Please rely on the blessings to escape quickly. It's clear. They're doing their utmost to keep me alive. And perhaps something bad is about to happen. Su Qi pressed on the game console while he began to ponder. This time, Paradise finally gave all the information and blessings, and he knew he had another path aside from killing the little girl before him. Dealing with the source of the mist pollution. From the recent information, it's a collision of two abnormal forces. One must be this Master of Destruction, and the other, the mist source. Those continuous monsters are also fleeing from being hunted. Su Qi squinted. This matter wasn't as complicated as it seemed. It was just two camps, and now his two methods of escape, killing the little girl and dealing with the mist source, were actually about choosing sides. Just who powered the mist source? Recalling the pollution, Su Qi always had an ominous feeling. In that case, Su Qi slowly turned the game console and looked towards the little girl. He gently spoke. Chiron, little friend. Pause for a moment. Big Brother has something important to say. Although they had been playing the game continuously, Su Qi and she had maintained occasional conversation, disrupting each other's concentration during focus and drawing out quite a lot of information. Though maybe a bit too much for a little girl. But for the Master of Destruction, Su Qi felt it was necessary. The little girl. Her innocent eyes were no longer there, her pupils cold. She bit her teeth a bit explosively at Su Qi. I was about to win. The middle-aged woman was somewhat astonished. As she noticed the girl's aura and strength were somewhat recovering. Achieving such a degree, either she had taken fatal damage or was stimulated emotionally. This bastard has pushed their own master to what state? However, Su Qi shook his head, softly smiling. You're mistaken. The outcome of winning or losing is not important. What's important is the fun experience during the game. The little girl paused. That kind of makes sense. The dangerous aura disappeared in a blink of an eye. So that's how it is, I understand now. She blankly nodded. He patted the little girl's head, smilingly said, The student is teachable. The middle-aged woman's fingers trembled. She was already thinking about stepping in. As Su Qi saw the middle-aged woman's movements clearly, to him, the most difficult issue was still this middle-aged woman, who had been cautious towards him before. Now, her hostility was probably greater. Little did she know her hostility stemmed from her own master being completely fooled. So, what is this important matter? The little girl asked curiously. But the middle-aged woman had already come over, pulling the little girl closer, chuckling nervously. Thank you for playing with her. I'll take her to the restroom now. Su Qi, should I join? I mean to go to the men's restroom. Never mind, you guys go. Su Qi felt they wanted to escape, but seeing the information over the middle-aged woman's head, She wants to instruct her master not to interact too much with you, not to fall for your tricks again. So it was a preventive measure. Su Qi wasn't in a hurry. He still had many steps before figuring out who the opposing faction was. Approximately 5 minutes after the middle-aged woman took the little girl away, they returned. It seems quite a bit was said. Yet, upon her return, the middle-aged woman squinted at Su Qi, noticing he was writing something in a notebook. "What are you doing?" "Keeping accounts," Su Qi casually replied, causing the middle-aged woman's face to darken. "You specifically said winning or losing isn't important." They were about to sit down, albeit slightly further apart. Just then, there was a sudden violent collision sound from outside the academy. Boom! The noise outside the iron gate was loud. The enhancers in the main hall looked tense. "Everyone, take shelter inside. Other enhancers follow me." Su Qi also noticed the middle-aged woman's expression become serious and slightly pale, seemingly sensing the danger. He knew something big was coming. The middle-aged woman spoke seriously to the little girl's ear before grabbing her hand. "Let's go." She was about to turn away with the little girl. The little girl suddenly grabbed at the hem of the person's clothing and pointed at Su Qi. "Big brother is a good person." The middle-aged woman, "A good person, my ass. Master, you're being sold and yet you're throwing in extra money." She stared at the corner of the cloth that the little girl was grasping and finally sighed helplessly, looking at Su Qi with some gritted teeth. "You should leave too. Things are about to get very dangerous here." Before entering the academy, the middle-aged woman had set up some kind of tool which had probably been triggered. Swarms of monsters were about to breach the place, and those enhancers wouldn't be able to hold them off. That's all she said. They quickly left through the back door of the auditorium and headed towards another exit at the school. "We have to leave quickly. These monsters seem to be following us," the middle-aged woman worriedly said. "Is it because of the power used before the reset? Otherwise, why would so many come all at once?" The phrases on the notebook hardly described the full picture before the reset, and if it had been detected, they were in trouble. And just as they were about to leave, "So you think you can take the back route? I'd advise against that." Su Qi's voice appeared behind them. The middle-aged woman's eyes shifted slightly, staring at Su Qi with a hint of danger. "Are you trying to stop us?" Su Qi, seeing her wary demeanor, shook his head and pointed towards the mist. "That way is also a dead end." The middle-aged woman was still puzzled. The next moment, from the mist, 3 giant monsters wielding giant axes appeared in their line of sight, and they smashed through the towering walls, their eyes blazing red with the scent of death. They stared at the little girl and charged directly towards her. As expected, they've been targeted. Su Qi muttered to himself, watching the scene unfold. "Damn it!" the middle-aged woman shouted angrily, shielding the little girl. Runes appeared in her eyes, suggesting her body wasn't her real form. Using her power, her blood vessels continuously ruptured, and her body shook uncontrollably. "It seems your power comes at a price that can't be restored by a reset." Su Qi's voice struck like thunder, leaving the middle-aged woman stunned and hysterically furious. How do you know about resets?" "Don't ask. It's just an exceptional talent." Su Qi rushed forward, wielding the bone-breaking hammer. She was frightened and angry. She was about to burst. What you? Keep your crappy power. I'll handle the rest." In that moment, Su Qi leapt into the air, his magic cube skill activated, drawing one monster into his domain first, then blinding another. The other stood still, swinging its axe wildly as he shot the blood sword card at it. 3 bloodthirsty swords appeared around. The last one, he brought down his hammer hard, and thunder coursed through the entire monster's body. The greater the strength, the more powerful the thunder triggered. Boom! The middle-aged woman watched blankly. His power, though not impressive to her, resembled a superhero in this world, given all the restrictions. Swish! Su Qi swiftly moved back, not wasting a moment. He had to quickly deal with the last monster, For who knew what other dangers the mist held? And just then, that icy piercing sensation attacked again. Su Chi's eyes narrowed. A humanoid monster covered in compound eyes was in the distant mist, sending terrifying glances. But that wasn't important. What mattered was the patterns in its pupils, each one spinning with the all-too-familiar totems. D. 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 A strange voice continuously exploded, and this wasn't just spiritual impact. The surrounding mist actually transformed into blades, like piercing the body, slashing and chopping, each cut leaving a bloody mark down to the bone. Su Chi finally understood why Brother Paradise had buffed him. With an 80% damage immunity, his vitality was still dropping at a rate of 5% per second. The monsters in the mist were relentless, with many elite monsters. All this just to kill the Master of Destruction? Su Chi looked towards the little girl. The middle-aged woman was bleeding from her orifices. Her body cracked, but she had enveloped both of them in a shield, while other monsters from the mist surged towards them furiously. Her face turned pale. The notebook on her person emitted a faint glimmer, seemingly recording something. The little girl, in contrast, showed no fear. Her ponytail loosened, her hair wild and her eyes cold as she stretched out her small hand. Reset. Feeling the twisting sensation around him, Su Chi, at the last moment, abandoned the idea of resorting to his unrivaled move, a skill that could only be used once in an instance. A reset would naturally make it unusable again, and he didn't want to waste it here. Boom! The entire scene around him twisted. The blades formed from mist retreated. Su Chi felt the twisting happen much more briefly this time. The next moment, he knew why, because he now found himself not near the metal gates, but inside the auditorium in front of a paused gaming console. The little girl still looked up curiously and asked, "So, what was the important thing?" The middle-aged woman was already coming over, intending to take the little girl for ideological work. This time, Su Chi wasn't about to give her the chance. He smiled, patted the little girl's head. "Of course, it's about whether or not you can repay your debts in the future." Chapter 119, We Must Clear It in One Life. Middle-aged woman. She grabbed the little girl. "Let's go. I'll take you to the bathroom." The middle-aged woman felt uneasy. It seemed there had been another reset, and there was new content in her notebook. It read, "This place is extremely dangerous. Leave immediately." At the same time, there was another note. "This person named Su Buxian is a thief and a scoundrel who deceives and kidnaps children, but he seems trustworthy." She found it hard to understand how such conflicting assessments could coexist in the same person. What had happened in the last reset? Wasn't I supposed to be wary of him? The middle-aged woman couldn't figure it out, but she had decided to take the little girl and leave immediately. Su Chi watched the two of them and softly said, "Let's talk. Otherwise you'll die once you leave." As soon as he said this, the middle-aged woman's eyes suddenly turned cold, and she fiercely stared at Su Chi, pulling the little girl behind her, her aura suddenly intensifying. "What are you talking about?" Su Chi shrugged. "In 5 minutes, monsters will flood this place like a tide, and there are also other elite monsters waiting all around. With a body on the verge of collapse, where can you possibly run?" The middle-aged woman was stunned. "How do you know all this?" "Because I just experienced a reset," Su Chi said with a light smile, tossing out the words as if they were weightless. No matter how lightly spoken, those words struck the middle-aged woman like lightning. She turned deathly pale, ready to flee with the little girl. In her view, the so-called external monsters were far less terrifying than a person who could retain his memory through a reset. "Why run?" Su Chi muttered, appearing in front of the two. "Running without calmness will only harm you." The middle-aged woman clenched her teeth, staring hard at Su Chi. "Who exactly are you? If you are an enemy, I will take you down with me." Su Chi looked at her as if she were an idiot. "Use that walnut-sized brain of yours and think, if I were an enemy, why would I tell you any of this?" The middle-aged woman was at a loss for words. However, The little girl tugged at her sleeve. I think Brother Su makes sense. Middle-aged woman. But. No more buts, we're running out of time. Su Chi casually snapped his fingers. Let's find a quiet place first, and let me tell you what exactly happened before the last reset. About a minute later, the middle-aged woman looked dazed. You're saying at the last moment, you saved us? And even made a promise. Su Chi nodded. Of course, I am the hired hitman you paid a hefty price for. His previous statements had not changed, except for some minor tweaks at the end. After all, she wouldn't remember anything after the reset, so why not mess with it? And since Su Chi had decided to address the source of the mist, he naturally stood with the little girl, the master of destruction. After all, she possessed the formidable power of the evil god. He couldn't control that. The middle-aged woman looked suspicious, not fully convinced yet, but the little girl nodded. I believe Big Brother is a good person. A belated acknowledgement of goodwill. Su Chi nodded in satisfaction. Good. You have good judgment. Middle-aged woman took a deep breath. All right, I'll reveal some information to you. Someone is after a treasure on my person. Su Chi. Stop making things up. He pointed at the little girl. She's the so-called master of destruction, right? With the ability to reset things, you are her protector hiding from the power of the mist source, and this body is still. Listening to Su Chi's clear words one after another, the middle-aged woman looked shocked and almost shouted, How the hell do you know all this? I've said it before, sincerity is the best weapon. Don't waste time and trust anymore. Just tell the truth. There's nothing I, Brother Su, haven't seen. The middle-aged woman took a deep breath, a hint of annoyance flashing in her eyes. Mortals shouldn't be too arrogant. The world is vast. Standing before you is an entity beyond your imagination, the great master of destruction. She suddenly found herself unable to continue, because Su Chi was pinching the little girl's cheek. So, esteemed master of destruction, why are you so weak right now? The little girl, unlike before where she dodged the nurses, softly spoke. I don't know. Chiron said I am a soul entity. My real power is asleep somewhere in an ancient land. She wants to take me back there, to restart an era. The middle-aged woman's eyes widened. Although her master had no memory, she was rather blunt to be spilling all this. So Chiron is your name? Su Chi looked towards the middle-aged woman. That was the name the little girl had given when he asked. The middle-aged woman coldly said, Your Highness's real name. How could it be casually told to you? A mere mortal couldn't handle it. And so Su Chi understood. Because this wasn't the first time he'd come across such a thing. In Lin Yuan land, the bishop sought to leave the ancient battlefield and revive, which actually wasn't much different from this current master of destruction. The only difference was the opponent had turned into evil god. The source of the mist is an entity of the same rank as Her Highness. Although sealed in the abyss, it nonetheless does not wish to see our master recover, pressing against the seal and exerting its power on this world to keep us from leaving, and it has unleashed numerous monsters to hunt us. So, the middle-aged woman paused, looking at Su Chi. Once you decide to help us, you will also be plunged into this disaster, and targeted by that horrific existence. After hearing all this, do you still have the courage to help Her Highness? Su Chi. Should I scoop out my eyeballs to show you? If it weren't for evil god being the opponent, I probably wouldn't even take this job. Undeterred, Su Chi declared. Since I've promised, I must see it through, especially since if you're gone, where would I even send the bill? Others always leave something unsaid, but you so unabashedly and shamelessly spell it all out. The middle-aged woman looked at Su Chi and sighed. The problem now is, the place we want to leave is right through the channel where the mist source originates, probably teeming with more monsters, and dangers greater in both degree and strength. Can you truly help us? Now, it's time to use the hidden technique, Su Chi softly declared. The middle-aged woman stunned. What's that? The little girl's eyes sparkled. I know this. Angry, The middle-aged woman looked at Su Qi. Have you no shame? That's not important. Su Qi calmly said, Anyway, this secret technique can only be used once, and can't be used again after a reset. So next. His tone slightly serious and his gaze piercing. He gently said with a smile, We need to clear this with one life. Chapter 120. The show begins. The little girl and the middle-aged woman both stared at Su Qi in a daze. They were still not quite used to it. When he got serious, he seemed somewhat reliable. But, the middle-aged woman said gravely, if it truly comes to a moment that endangers your highness, don't hesitate at all, just activate. The little girl paused, then shook her head. I won't reset. The middle-aged woman was shocked. Your highness, why? Because he has never lost. The middle-aged woman's eyes widened. That counts as never losing? Every time they reached a standstill, the opponent would cheat. How could that even work? Su Qi gave the little girl a surprised look. Truly worthy of being the master of destruction. Although the little girl had no memory, she could see more clearly than others. It wasn't that he had never lost, but that in any situation, Su Qi would never allow himself to be at a disadvantage. He narrowed his eyes and patted the stunned middle-aged woman. Even without her memory, she is much smarter than you. The middle-aged woman, she didn't understand, but a bleak sentiment arose in her heart as she was stabbed in the back. You all should know the location of the mist source, Su Qi said. We have it. The middle-aged woman finally took out that notebook. The notebook's cover featured a totem, which Su Qi hadn't seen before. In the previous bizarre battlefield, there were many totems, each representing a devotee of a Transcendence series being. Yet the followers of the Master of Destruction did not seem to be among them. It's in this direction. The middle-aged woman looked into the distance, her expression slightly grave. Lastly, I remind you, the people who descended here in this chase might also be formidable enemies. Restricted by the laws of this world, they definitely cannot exert their true strength. And what about you? Su Qi turned to the middle-aged woman. Can you be of any use? Look who you're talking to. The middle-aged woman snorted coldly. As long as we get closer to the channel of the mist source, I can also exert more strength. She then suddenly bit her teeth. If it weren't for the power burst that seemed to reset earlier, even without you, I could have taken your highness out. I don't even know what enemy we encountered that forced me to burst prematurely. Su Qi. He coughed. Little ones, prepare to set off. At this moment, the mist source, a channel sprawling across the street, stirred with waves of ripples. There was a massive figure, 3 meters tall, with a body rotting and emitting an extreme stench. Its entire face was full of horrific sores. Each breath out was filled with deadly poison. Beside him was a young man with slightly sinister eyes, wearing a gas mask. He spoke with a degree of respect, looking at the decaying entity before him. Respected Plague Baron, a surge in strength has been detected at that school location. It seems they are hiding there. We've basically locked down the location. Won't you go there yourself? The Plague Baron let out a bizarre laugh. A mere descender like you, teaching me what to do? I dare not. The young man quickly lowered his head. The Plague Baron's body emitted a foul stench. His bodily fluids like sulfuric acid, dripping onto the ground and corroding the concrete road, making a sizzling sound. They want to leave this world. Naturally, they must go through this passage here, and I'm guarding here. What's that phrase you Paradise folks use again? Waiting for the rabbits, the young man quickly replied, his eyes carrying a few traces of flattery. And don't worry, my lord, I will also do my utmost at any cost to kill the target. The young man's tone held a hint of hope. Can you show me that item of yours first? That ancient relic? The Plague Baron was in a good mood. Fine, I'll let you have a look first. The young man saw a poison gas-drifting metal sphere tossed over to him. His face lit up with joy, and he quickly caught it with his hands covered in thick gloves, the other being a species with special abilities, as evident from the deadly poison fog that warns others to stay away. This ancient relic naturally also possessed its attributes' hidden profession. Now he had finally obtained this extremely powerful, dream-come-true resurrection tool. His fawning had not been in vain. "But, my lord, how do I open it?" I said. "It's just for you to look at." The voice of the Plague Baron was as if slime stuck in his throat, somewhat cold and hoarse. "To open it, you need to wait until the task is completed to my satisfaction." "Understood." Listening to the somewhat impatient voice, the young man nodded quickly. At that moment, a small winged creature flew through the mist and landed on the Plague Baron's shoulder, screeching strangely. The young man didn't understand, but he saw the Plague Baron's eyebrows raise. Interesting. The Plague Baron's oily green eyes looked towards the mist, revealing a somewhat excited, bizarre smile. "They are heading this way, and a battle has occurred. They couldn't resist revealing their tracks, eh?" The young man's eyes also brightened. "What do we do?" "Wait." The Plague Baron's body slightly shifted, hands on his knees, his blackened fingertips tapping on his decaying flesh. He smiled. "Their movement means they can no longer wait, ready to go all out, because the longer the time passes, under this pollution, the monsters become stronger. To get close here, they'd have to cross at least 6 blocks. The groups of monsters we've arranged ahead should be enough to drain that protector's strength." He well knew the abnormalities and limitations of this world. These high sequencers could only bring in so much strength. Using a bit meant losing a bit. This was also one of the reasons he was reluctant to leave this channel. Once away, his strength would also weaken.